Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, 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 one and all, to yet another episode of WIC TV, a cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. Gang, we have a show that covers all the bases today. It is political, it is cultural, it's a bit silly, but it's very serious as well. We are going to talk about something that's been happening more and more often. And we're going to talk and discuss about this topic through a specific lens of a tweet that was made by a woman a few days ago. Let me read this tweet. Okay. First of all, welcome to the show. Nice to see you, cameraman. Zephyr Hash. Trump did what? We're going to talk about it. Let me get to the tweet, okay? It says this, okay? Donald Trump broke my marriage. As of today, after 8 fucking years of fighting, not fighting, ignoring, pretending, we decided to divorce. Donald Trump broke my marriage, and I know I am not alone. I looked into this. This marriage she's speaking of was over 20 years. I want to say 24, 27. She has kids. They have kids together that are involved, right? I guess the question for my panelists here are: is this okay? Is it okay that they decided to divorce over political differences? Why or why not? And let's start it there, and we'll talk about it. So we're gonna pass the ball first to Fairy Queen, and then we'll end with Often Topical. So, Fairy Queen, what are your initial thoughts here? Give it to us.
Well, I have more thoughts about this in general, about the concept in general, but let's talk specifically about this marriage. So I don't know the specifics about their marriage, aside from the fact that they're divorcing because they've had arguments over Donald Trump. And I think, like, just off the cuff, that seems like a dumb reason to divorce. I don't think it was a good idea for them to get to divorce. It seems like a silly reason to me. Now, with that being said, why I wanted to talk about it in general, I think there could be an argument for why a political disagreement would make sense to divorce somebody over. So if you are in politics, if you're a journalist, if you're a public figure and you have huge political fights with your spouse, that might be a reason to divorce. That could be like a justifiable reason. But this doesn't seem to be that occasion, and so I think it's silly.
Okay, thank you. We'll get into it as we go. Ghosty, what are your thoughts here?
So in general, I think it's bad to end relationships, like committed relationships, friendships, and especially marriages over political views, with 2 exceptions, maybe like newly forming relationships or newly founded or newly expressed extreme views. But other than that, I think in general, it's bad to be so divisive and exclusive with people that we're supposed to be committed to and love in our lives.
Okay, thank you. And next up, Often Topical. Thoughts?
Yeah, so I would say political differences are a perfectly fine reason to get a divorce, similarly to how I would say any other reason why you find incompatibilities with someone a reason to get a divorce. Do I think that you should be like immediately the first thought that you go to is divorce, or the first thing that you go to is divorce, or cutting off a friendship or anything like that? No, but I also don't think that that's an unacceptable reason or a very out there reason, even, just like I wouldn't for any other kind of difference.
Interesting. Any other kind of difference? Well, we're going to explore it more. We have one more guest that's hopefully going to be showing up soon, and when they get here, we'll insert him into the conversation. But I guess my question to all of you, right, is whether you think that this is an acceptable reason to leave your partner. What do you think? Have relationships in general gotten more divided by politics? Why is this happening? Because this is indicative of a larger issue that I've seen. That's the reason we're talking about it, right? Is because this is a good example of something I've seen across the spectrum that we can't tolerate each other's differing politics anymore. It used to be fairly common. You know, you'd have the mom who was a little more left leaning and the dad who was a little more right leaning, but they'd stay married, raise their kids, etc. What's changed? And this is open to everyone. Go ahead.
I'd say a big reason that it's changed over time has been the temperature itself. I think we see it, I will say, for my bias, more on the Republican side, but the Democrats as well. The political temperature being turned up more and more and more. Anybody who is involved in politics can see that. And anybody who's involved in politics is going to get caught up in that to some degree as well.
I agree. Like, I think the Republicans kind of turned the heat up a little bit more in general. But from my personal life and what I see online, I see this being more of like a liberal left-leaning problem. I see more people on the left ending relationships. Well, I guess you don't think it's a problem, but I see that more on the left. Deleting Facebook friends, breaking up, and stuff like that.
So, and I want to hear your thoughts in a second, Fairy Queen, but just to kind of contribute to the conversation since we're down a man, isn't that okay? Like, if I am friends with someone and they're constantly talking about those Jews, right, and how the Jews are taking over everything, why should I stay friends with someone like that?
So, or are you asking Ghosty?
No, that's to everyone. Go ahead. If you got a thought,
Well,
give us a thought.
yeah, yeah, no. So if it's something extreme, something that really incredibly violates your values, like Holocaust denial, then yes, that's
Or
probably a
Trump,
reason. Like not to,
right? Why?
or
So what's
well,
the difference between
well.
MAGA and that?
So the difference is, and this is a segue to answering the previous question that you had. There is a huge political polarization that's going on within Generation Z between both men and women. We just to look at some of the numbers here. So according to like this number, so in America, 40% of young women in America identify as liberal, compared to with only 25% of their male peers. On the other hand, 29% of young men identify as conservative, compared with 21% of their female peers. And what that means is, if you are a man, okay, probably your best bet if you're trying to find the biggest population and pool of women for you to date are liberal women. There are just more liberal women than there are conservative women, which means, so if you are having trouble finding a partner, if you're having trouble finding a mate, if you're having trouble finding friends, quite frankly, right, just in general, it would greatly broadens the pool of people that you can talk to if you decide, if you're able to get along with people who are more liberal than you are. And that doesn't mean you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? There are still going to be some values, some principles that you hold, right, that you're not going to violate, right? So just because you hang out with a conservative, if you're a liberal, that doesn't mean that you're going to hang out with like Nick Fuentes, right? It means, if you want to broaden your circle, especially, frankly, if you're a conservative man or a conservative woman, learning to get along with liberal people seems to be like the way to do that.
Also,
$5.
like a Oh,
Oh,
go ahead.
yeah, just real quick. $5 from Turtle Emergency. Are any of the panelists married or have any of them been married? I am wanting to get a sense of how to interpret their responses.
Yeah, so I'll say for me, I am divorced and remarried. So I am currently married and I have been divorced.
Oh, so you've got experience in all the
The
factors,
whole
right? The whole
spectrum, yeah.
shebang. Okay. Um, but I'm sorry for interrupting. Go ahead, Ghosty, and then I have further thoughts, but go ahead.
I was just going to add on, like a lot of people aren't fully aware or well informed of politics as well. So they might be like a Trump supporter and not be fully aware of how extreme a lot of that side's views are.
So I would say I just want to chime in there in that I think when we're talking about things like politics ending a friendship or ending a marriage, um, and maybe this is just me, but I think it's safe to assume that these are people who are probably more involved in or more aware of politics. I can't imagine just having like a almost no knowledge whatsoever of the Republican Party stances or the Democratic Party stances, but finding someone's support of the Republican Party enough to end a marriage after, what was it, 20 years?
Yeah, 20 plus years. I think it was 24 or 27. Don't quote me on the exact number.
Yeah, going off of that, to me, that sounds like somebody who is pretty plugged in to the issues.
So, I think according to the International Business Times, 33% of Americans and 43% of millennials would consider divorce over voting for Trump alone. But like, I guess there could be more details behind that, but just over simply voting for Trump, they would consider divorcing.
If I can also like just cut into like we had this conversation like a while back ago about like the gendered polarization between like Generation Z, between like how women are becoming increasingly more and more liberal and men are branching off and becoming increasingly more conservative. Um, just like I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought.
No, it's fine.
Yeah, it'll come back to me in a
Sure.
second. I
Let me let me
apologize.
let
Yeah.
me let me kind of give my 2 cents here. And Mr. Often Topical, you're a little low still, so if you could just turn up your volume just a little
Yep.
more so my
I can
viewers
do
can
that.
hear you.
How
That
are we
would be
now? Are
great.
we a little happier?
Yes, a little better. And viewers, continue to tell me if audios need adjusting. This is until we get our final guest. This is going to be a little more of a conversation than a debate, but we'll see how it goes. But my view on this, Steelman's aside, right? Friendships are fundamentally different. Like there's different types of relationships here. There's different thresholds I would have for what I would consider acceptable behavior to ending some sort of relationship. If you are just friends with someone, I think that I have a much lower threshold for, well, okay, you're just friends. There's no real commitments there. You've just hung out for a while. If you have a difference of opinion on something and it leads to the end of the friendship, okay, that's just how life is. But marriage specifically, especially when it involves children, I I don't know. I consider it unless those beliefs, those political beliefs leads to abusive behavior, unless the political beliefs are leading him to being like beating you or something. I don't know, right? Then no, you stick it out, especially for 20 years. 20 years, and because he has a different view on Republicans versus Democrats than you, you're going to break up your marriage and significantly harm your children in the process because, gang, kids from divorced couples don't do as well. That's just true, right?
I disagree
You
so
disagree?
strongly. Yeah. I'll say if an issue is getting to the point where
Mm.
it is getting to divorce, one thing that you also have to consider, especially if we're talking about children, is the environment that those children are growing up in. If you have two parents who do not get along to the point where they cannot see their marriage going forward at all, that is not a healthy environment for a child either. We can talk about how children of married parents do better on average than children of divorced parents. Sure, I wouldn't argue with the data. If the data backs that up, it does. But then we also have to look at do we have any data about parent or kids who grow up in a house with two parents who hate each other versus two parents who get along great? Because I imagine that one of those two is going to fare a lot better than the other as well.
Okay, we have our next guest here with us.
Hello.
Hi, Sizzling. You got a camera for us today?
I can, but it would be a little
It's up
little
to-
bootleg.
It's you know what? Let's go with what you got so far. Um, yeah, what are your thoughts on this before we get to Fairy Queen? I saw your hand, Fairy Queen. Don't worry, but I want to make sure that Sizzling gets a chance to get in here. Go ahead.
All right. I don't think divorce is a huge issue as people think it is. As long as parents can co-parent, that's all we care about, I think. That's all we should really care about. If the child is able to survive in a good co-parenting situation, why do they have to stay married? So like if there is just enough strife that this is like an election season, this is like a pretty big argument every election season, it might be good to just end it and just enter co-parenting where you both are happy and with partners that are going to.
You're cutting in and out audio wise.
Am I? Okay, let me
Yeah.
fix that.
We'll let you mess with that a little bit, but we'll pass it to Fairy Queen a little bit. Yeah.
So I recovered my thought from earlier. So in that conversation that we had months ago about like conservative men and a growing pool of like liberal women, one of the points that was made by Allison on that panel was that when these people were surveyed about like being liberal or being conservative, they were really referring to aesthetic choices. They were referring to a cultural NU about like what it meant to be conservative or what it meant to be liberal. They weren't necessarily merely talking about their political drives, right? So again, like I understand, like it is true, and I think it's probably fair to say, like if it's big enough to split up, for sure. Like if it's big enough of an issue that you're constantly at each other's throats, like arguing all the time, then like it would then at that point, like maybe divorce is the correct option. But at the same time, like what Wick is saying is true. Like it is true that divorce like can be incredibly traumatic for kids. And it's also true that frankly step parents are, even if it's true that the household that they're growing up in is full of incredible strife, by divorcing and remarrying, if you bring a step parent into the family, there's it increases, the factor of the potential for abuse like in a huge way. And it's just simply the way it is. And so like when we're deciding, like the question is, what issue do you choose to divorce over, right? Like some values that you have that are political values are going to be important for running a household, like who works most of the time, who does the childcare, who does most of the domestic labor, who is paying the mortgage, right? Do we believe in IVF or do we not believe in IVF? Do we believe in homeschooling or do we believe in sending our kids to public school? Like you need to agree on that, right, in order for you to properly run a household. But I don't know why it would be a good idea, anyone would think it'd be a reasonable idea, for instance, for let's say a conservative Christian couple to divorce over arguing over Israel versus Palestine, for instance, or arguing about Russia over Ukraine, or arguing about like the history of like Chinese communism and how it related to Taiwan. Like all of these are political issues, to be clear, right? But they aren't political issues that directly relate to rearing children, to taking care of each other, to working and living life every day. Like I understand there are some political values that are going to impact, but these ones that I'm talking about are abstract and removed enough that I don't know like why it would be reasonable to support that necessarily.
I would ask, would you extend this? So let's say we've got like, because I think I get where you're coming from. But my question is, so we're all familiar with like the MAGA person who is like, make America great again, flags hanging from the back of their pickup truck. They've got the MAGA hat, the shirts, everything, the whole nine yards. Um, do you think it would be okay for someone who maybe when you get into a relationship in the first place, it's I'm a conservative, I'm a Democrat, I'm a liberal, whatever. We can see past our differences, but this person starts going down this path of like full on, full throated MAGA all the way. Do you think that would be an acceptable reason to go, this isn't working out, I want a divorce?
Well, I mean, it depends, right? Like I think because Wick said also, like I would say it depends on your level of commitment to the relationship, right? If
Marriage.
it if it's marriage, you're married, do you have kids?
Sure.
Okay, well, because it depends, right? So if you have kids, then that's a reason for you to try to attempt to go to couples counseling together, right? It's not a reason, I think, for you to immediately cut off your spouse if it doesn't affect like the way that you're taking care of your kids and the way that you're taking care of your house, right? If it's simply these are his political views and it's not impacting everyone else and like your relationship with your family, that's different, right? But like if your spouse is saying a lot of really heated MAGA shit, like at the Thanksgiving table, and he's causing fights and like he's yelling at his children about, you see where I'm going with this, right? Like
Mhm.
that would be like, but that's not just because
Well,
he has
that
new
isn't
political
that
Wait,
beliefs.
isn't hold on.
That's,
That isn't an issue of belief, though,
yeah,
right? That's an issue of
exactly.
behavior.
yeah, that's what I want to get at. Actually,
Yeah.
I was
Exactly.
going to ask a question.
Exactly.
I was going to ask a question about this. Am I cutting in and out still?
So far, no, but I'll let you know.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Let's take it away from like MAGA completely. Let's just get like one of their beliefs or like one of their like what a lot of liberals see as their beliefs. Let's say like or like one of their more extreme beliefs, I guess. What if you were married to someone that now presented after maybe like 5 years, you have kids, two kids or whatever, it doesn't really matter to me. Um, what if they presented now that they are completely racist to like Indian? It didn't come up before, but now they're 100% a racist person to Indians. Is that enough for a divorce?
Well, I guess you weren't here in the beginning, but one of my exceptions was like new founded or newly expressed extreme beliefs. I think that's totally fine. Like if you were unaware that they had these beliefs and they're starting to like post swastikas and shit, I think that's fine to consider divorcing over that for
No, but
sure.
like, what is extreme then? I guess.
Um, eh, like
Because like,
anything that's
there's like,
extremist.
but like,
Um,
say they start constantly posting like shitting in the streets or something like that. Like, keep posting memes about how like India is really really dirty. Is that extreme to you, or is it just like a
uh,
racist person?
I mean, it depends. Like there might be some parts of India that it's dirty. Like it really depends. Like I don't
No,
know.
like they know they're like directly racist. They're saying all Indians are
Yeah,
these are dirty.
racism is extreme for sure.
Okay. So a belief at all, it doesn't have to be abusive. A belief you think can be harmful to children, correct?
Yeah,
Okay, so like what about like anti-science? Could you see that as being harmful to children?
anti-science.
Yes, like anti-science beliefs.
Yes. Is it coming from a religious perspective though? Like
Let's say
are
no
they?
for now, but we can get into that.
Um. So yes, I do think that's harmful. And pretty extreme too.
Yeah, like so let's say like there was an actual genuine question in the household now. Like your kids are asking you, "Hey, do Democrats actually control the weather?
Like
Is that
hurricanes are caused
acceptable?"
by Jewish people and shit. Like yeah,
Yeah,
that's
like
pretty extreme.
could no, not even like Jewish people, but just like Democrats, like there's just like
Yeah.
a question that there is possibly a weather machine that's causing like these hurricanes or something like that. Is that extreme enough? Like where's the line is kind of my question.
Well, if I can just interject, like the real answer is that it's going to subjectively depend on who you are and what your values are and what's important to you. Like
I'll give you.
like Ghosty can give you her answer. I could give you my answer. You could like say, well, how do I precisely know? We're going to be here all night if we're going to do that. The
No, I'm
truth
saying
is,
like
Yeah.
it
Okay,
depends on who
so
you are
a
individually.
couple
think
things. Thank
Mhm.
you, Zetsway, for the 5 gift subs, and $5 from Cameron 502 to say the only real reason to end a marriage over politics is if they can't change their mind and won't change the subject. Sorry, just had to make
Fair.
some money. Go ahead.
That's fair.
I think I'd like to oh gosh, I just lost my train of thought from that
We're
donation.
losing trains of thought left and right. The trains
I'm
are
glad
being
sorry.
it's funny, but it's
derailed.
messing up my brain.
It's okay. Let's maybe do some stretches, get the blood flowing to the brain cells and things like that. Let me interject with this hot take. Because I see where you're going, Sizzling. I understand it, but I don't think if you've been married for a significant amount of time, let's say over 5 years, and you have kids, even if they have crazy beliefs, I think that you need to work it out rather than just leave or rather
Well,
than get a divorce, even if it bothers you a lot. Because
so
I think that
I don't think this has anything to do with me personally. This is about my kids in this scenario.
Right.
what I'll say though is I want to just clarify real quick. So the position, I don't know if Sizzling you hold this position as well. My position is not that the first avenue should be
No,
divorce.
obviously
My
not.
position is that divorce is acceptable. I
Yes,
don't think it should be
exactly.
the first avenue, but I think it's completely acceptable. I think if your spouse starts saying that Democrats do control weather machines, actually, you should be like, "Hey, that's fucking crazy. Actually, you're an insane person. We need to talk about this." But if
Yeah.
they are still full throated all the way of like, "No, yeah, there's a conspiracy, and Democrats do this, and they are insane," that is, I would say, almost, I would go to the length of saying that's not a safe person to be
Yeah,
around
this is what I
at that
wanted to
level
make
of
it.
psychosis, and I would
This ex-
say that
yeah.
it's completely acceptable at that point to break it off. Yeah.
No, this is
I think
exactly why I want to make a distinction with true like actual belief, where the person is believing in the conspiracy itself, but all the components that lead to that conspiracy. They're like actually informed, and they like are aware of these like individual components. And it would take like you've talked to this person a couple times, and it would take years to individually dissect each of these conspiracy points.
okay. Well, I mean, like a couple of things. Like I think we were talking about political beliefs. Now we're like, I feel like we're going into like cult, and we're going
Is it a
into
cult
like
though?
these places.
This is
Well,
a
but hang
stance
on,
that's
whoa,
held
well,
by
hang
a
on.
U.S. representative.
Well, but hang on, like what I'm saying is that like you're saying any crazy belief, right? Like I don't think that like when Wick said that, like I don't think he meant you're suddenly hearing like ghosts in the bushes, right?
No,
Or that you think, or that well, but like well, that's kind of like what we're saying though, right?
No,
like,
no.
if
What
your
I'm
husband
saying is,
starts saying
I'm
that he
saying is
thinks
a
he's
belief.
Napoleon, yeah,
I'm
but
saying
like
specifically a belief that would harm your kids if they started to believe it as well.
well, but the response to that though is like what I said earlier, which is that behavior is not the same thing as belief, right? Like I think that like for like especially very young children, like political conversations with them at then length like that aren't really appropriate. Like there would be a big difference, right, between my husband saying, "Oh, I think that FEMA controls the weather," and him going and sitting down with the kids and saying, "Hey, just so you know, Biden might turn off the rain tomorrow, so you better make sure to finish your homework on time," right? Like, no, right? Like, obviously, there's a difference between these two things, right? And there are some beliefs that we don't talk about with our kids until they're old enough and until that's appropriate, right? But again, I feel like this is a matter of behavior. This is not a matter of belief. However, like pursuant to the crazy stuff, right? The reason why that's bad is not because they have necessarily a different political belief, but because it seems like they're unhinged, right? Or deranged. Even if they yeah, that's part of the reason. Like you're not concerned that this person is a Republican. You're concerned that this person might be potentially mentally ill, right? That's the concern.
And to be honest, like when I see a lot of these people in my life and on the internet ending these friendships and relationships and these tweets about divorce, I don't think a lot of it is about this extreme stuff. I think a lot of people are ending relationships and friendships just simply for like associating with Trump or the right in general.
I don't agree because I think all of these beliefs seep into your everyday conversations, and they start to wear on people very easily. So like you'll start to talk to them about like any kind of political thing, and it becomes like about the First Amendment, or it becomes
because it annoys you too much, so you divorce them.
No. It's not about annoying. It becomes all roads lead to Democrats. Every single like the conversations are useless.
I've had relationships with people who have significantly different political beliefs than mine, and you know how those relationships work? You just don't talk about it.
No.
I can't think of someone I've been with that hasn't had a belief that I thought was dumb fuck. Like,
no.
Oh man, you like the Notebook? That's a dumb fuck belief. But then we just don't talk about that. We do other things.
I would argue that if you are in a relationship with somebody,
depending on the person.
Well, hang on. I would argue that if you were in a relationship with somebody where there is a topic where you and that person, your significant other, have such a significant disagreement that you cannot even talk about it without it being a huge argument,
toxic.
That's not healthy at all.
You can have disagreements and debates in a healthy way, though.
No.
I agree.
If you have to avoid a conversation with somebody, if you have to avoid any topic with somebody, that's not a person I want to have in my life. Because they're probably too fragile. They're probably too fragile.
Well, again, that's a fragility issue. That's a personality issue. That's not just because they believe. If they like literally can't control themselves and don't know how to have a reasonable argument or disagreement with you, that's just like a relationship problem. That's not a political different like
$10, problem. $10, then I'll let you go. $10 from Blahika Blah. The idea that my partner has or develops a strong belief in something and I'm not receptive to the idea inherently feels strange. Why would I pick a partner if I didn't trust their intuitions?
Exactly. Kind of like
I would agree with that. My point though, my point is not so much disagreeing. Like you can be significant, as you can be married for 50 years happily your entire life and disagree about things. That's going to happen. That's human nature. That's totally normal. You're never going to meet somebody that you 100% ideologically align on every single thing with. To expect that is unrealistic. But my point is that if you are in a relationship with somebody for a significant period of time and there is a topic that is so intrinsically, you're so diametrically opposed on it that you are unable to even have a conversation with this person without it devolving into a heated argument to the point where you say,
have that conversation.
Then you have such a that is not healthy.
That is toxic.
Why is that toxic? If I know,
I want to say something. Like you came at me for not having conservative friends. One of my best friends is a conservative, but they're not a crazy conservative. They are a Catholic. They are they're so religious. I'm like, oh, what the fuck? And we joke about it with each other
because we can both take it. Different.
So wait, no. This is everyone. If I can't talk with you about like religion, I'm not gonna interact with you. I'm gonna slowly drift away from you because I don't want to keep interacting with somebody that I have to avoid certain topics with. So like this my conservative friend, he goes and he talks topics. He goes down some conspiracies, and I go, "You're a fucking dumb fuck," and he goes, "Okay, yeah, I was a dumb fuck." And then I go down some conspiracies about like some crazy conservatives, and he goes, "Yeah, you're a bit of a dumb fuck," and I go, "Yeah, I was a bit of a dumb fuck." It's like you should be able to have that back and forth where you call each other dumb fucks for certain things, and not be able to like blow up at each other. These certain magatards are actually like unable to criticize Trump, so like I can't have any conversation like at
Liberals do
all.
that too, though. Liberals do
Yeah,
that
and they're
too.
bad
It's not
people
just
too.
like a.
They're bad people too.
I
wouldn't
So
be in a
again,
relationship with that
this
person
isn't
either.
a problem of different political views. This is a problem of behavior. This is a behavioral problem.
Yeah, and do you think that it's acceptable to break up with somebody or divorce somebody because you can't have a civil conversation with them?
That's completely fine.
I just disagree. I just disagree.
Why?
Again, if I
do
know,
too.
for example, okay,
How is
if
that
I
not toxic?
if I know that there is a topic that is very
Yeah.
sensitive to my spouse or significant other,
For
the
just
correct thing to
reasons.
do is not to bring that topic up because you know they're sensitive about it.
If you
Well,
if
when
you
you
if
say
you think it's like
sensitive,
rape, or if you think it's like something like really fucking like sensitive for good reason, yes. But if it's about just Trump, like that's insane, right?
No, I don't think it's insane. I mean, I'll just like in other relationships, let's not just talk about marriage, right? But I know that like in other relationships that I have with my parents, with my family, we disagree on religion. I don't talk about religion. And when I go to my mother's house, my mom prays, my mom blesses the meal, and I don't say anything. It is a topic that we do not discuss because it is strife. And that's pretty normal, right? Like we've spent a lot of time like over the
Yes.
past 10 years talking about boundaries in relationships. What is a boundary? A boundary is this is a thing, this is a request I'm making. I don't want to talk about this thing. And then you respect that and you leave that alone, right? That's just part of having a good relationship with anyone, right? Is to tell them what you feel comfortable with and what you don't feel comfortable with.
well, I will say my point on this is not so much that like in like your scenario that you're talking about here with religion, I don't think that means, oh, you can't have a conversation about religion with your mom, cut her off, don't ever speak to her again.
Crazy.
No. What I'm saying is if you can't have a conversation like that and that is affecting you in such a negative way, I think it is acceptable to cut that person out. I'm not saying you should. I'm not saying that that's your first response. I'm saying that it is an acceptable response to have. And I think that there is a substantive difference between those two things.
I fundamentally disagree. If
Wait,
you
wait,
are
wait. If
cutting
your
your
mom is
parents off
constantly
because they
bringing up
won't let you talk
you're gay.
religion, then you're a bad person.
I
If you
think
are a
if your
gay
parents
person,
if your
if you're a
parents
gay
won't
person,
respect your religion or won't respect your beliefs, that makes them just as bad of a person.
Yes, if they
And it
cut
goes
you
both
off
ways.
because of you won't be religious, that makes them bad. Yes,
no,
that's true.
no. This you can't. This is not conservative like chicken where you both collide each other and whoever like swerves off is like the loser. Whoever swerves off is the one that cuts off the toxic person. That's it. That's literally it. You're not like you don't have to have this toxic relation back and forth with a parent that hates you and is constantly bringing up
No,
like
but your
you're
parent
religion,
doesn't
you're going to
hate you.
go to
Your
hell. You're going to
parent.
go to hell. You're going to go to hell every single time you come
Well,
to hell.
no, whoa, time out, okay? That's behavior, right? That's very, very different than having a parent, right, that has a religious belief or is more religious
I
as
think
opposed to
no.
you, right?
I don't know. Depending. Like if it's a religion like Methodist where they don't really give a shit, who cares? But if it's a Baptist who has on their house like gays go to hell, that's not like that is technically just a belief. They're hanging gays go to hell on their
I guess
house. They're not
what I
they're
would
not bringing up on the conversations with you. They just have everywhere in their house gays go to hell. Gays go to hell. Is that a belief that's acceptable to you?
Again,
I
that's
think
pretty extreme.
No, that's normal. That's a
I know
normal
couples.
conservative belief. That
I
is a
know.
normal conservative belief.
Right,
I
but is it normal to
disagree.
wallpaper that on the walls, on the ceiling, on the doors, the handle? What is it? Live, laugh, love, and also we hate the gays, like hanging over the ceiling. Like, what are you talking about?
I want to bring back the conversation to what we were talking about beliefs versus behaviors, because I agree with you to an extent here. I think that your beliefs versus your behaviors are very, very different and can have very different effects on the people in your lives. I agree with that 100%. What I would say to that is fuck, what was I going to say? Oh my god. Oh, I remember. Do we think that you have an obligation, since we kind of expanded it out to like family members, for instance, do we believe that we have an obligation to our family members to be present around them, to go over for Thanksgiving,
To
things
an
like that?
extent, yes.
To what
Yes.
extent?
So
Obligation.
yes,
You're-
I do think that you have an extent, not just to your family members, right, but to people in general, to show certain courtesies, to show certain respects, right? And with family and with relationships, closer relationships, that obligation increases. So yes, I think that you have an obligation, even if you have substantive political or religious disagreements with an ailing family member, for example, right? If they get sick, yes, you're obligated to help them.
When did you enter into an agreement with a family member that they were going to be a part of your life?
Consent does not matter in this situation.
Why?
It absolutely matters in
This is
every
retarded.
situation.
Quick.
Why is it
actually
retarded?
because
Regardless of whether you sign a
blood is not a
contract.
contract. Blood is not a contract. We are not in the 1800s. We are like in the 21st century. You get to choose your family. This is like 100 billion movies out there today. You can go watch. You can choose your family. You do not have to stick by people that don't respect you. Not even hate you, but just don't respect you.
I think you have a right
Okay.
to cut people out of your life that are causing you harm and like, bad
We're not
mental health
talking
and
about
stuff like that.
Yeah, we're not talking
But-
about someone who's been beating you, right?
Right,
We're
No,
talking
right.
about
I'm
someone
not
who
either.
I
just
understand.
has a
Disrespecting.
substantive political
disrespecting.
disagreement.
But
Just
this is why this is why I just think like especially liberals, like a lot of family and just friendships and relationships are falling apart. There's like a certain level of intolerance that I just think is like kind of selfish and it's
No.
causing more division. We're not willing to even talk to the other side or like express anything or deal with these problems, and it's causing more problems.
No, I think being just like okay, being around like strife, constant, like not even just like not like they're bringing it up constantly, not that they're like hounding you with it, but just constant like disrespects, snide comments about like, oh my god, blue hair really does it? That's not natural. Just constantly things like whatever it could be, whatever it could be,
No.
just disrespects to your person, to your decisions, to your thoughts, to your beliefs. If anything if that's happening, you don't have an obligation to stay there.
You do sometimes, but go ahead, very
Yeah,
quick.
sometimes. Yeah, exactly.
Why?
Sometimes you do. Like, why? Okay, why? Because they are. I'll be honest with you. Like, it's nearly impossible to find a child that hasn't been condescended to by their parents. Okay, like I'm
Who's talking about
sorry, but let's
condescension?
strive.
Who's talking about condescension? We're talking about disrespect.
I'd
It's
say that's the
interesting.
same.
Wow. Okay. Well, anyway, as I was saying, like, yeah, like, of course, like your parents are going to disrespect you. Of course, that's part of like. I'm sorry, but like. This
No.
happens between parents and kids, okay? The parent says something, the kid doesn't like it, they're angry and grumpy about it. This is a very common dynamic, even between adult children and their parents, okay? That's very common, okay? And to be honest with you, the reason why you owe it to them. Like, I mean, parents say it and it sucks to say it, right? But unless your parents abused you, unless they were abusive pieces of shit, they neglected you, they abandoned you, if they did their best and they tried to help you and they raised you well, and you owe them. You do owe them back.
No.
You owe them. You owe
Effort-
them.
You
You
never-
you
a child-
love.
Effort is not
Yes,
enough.
you do.
A child
Effort
does
is not
not
enough.
a child does not ask to be brought into that situation of parentage. A child
Oh,
is
grow
not,
up.
If I come
Jesus
across,
Christ.
hold on.
This-
If
no,
I
no,
come
no, no,
across
no,
a
no, no.
man, if I come across a woman who is being raped, I didn't ask to come across that scenario. I didn't I didn't
who-
consent to being here. No, you're
Yeah.
fucking here. This is a scenario. You have an obligation of how to
Yeah.
act,
Seriously
regardless of whether
comparing-
or not
Are
you
you
signed a
comparing
contract,
the way
did
that
any
family
consent,
relations-
anything like that. Yes,
Where-
consent
comparing-
does not matter in this case.
Draw
The
the
situation
line.
is here,
Exactly.
regardless of what I
Draw the
consented
line.
to or not. The situation is here, and I have a moral obligation to perform in a certain way. You do.
No, you being part of a family is not you seeing crime. That's not the same thing.
Those
Draw
are
the line.
not comparable at all.
Draw the line.
But you're
Right
acting
now,
like
please.
you.
No. I want Wick to justify that crazy comparison,
Yes.
please.
Yes. What's to justify? It's true. You said that the reason we don't have any obligation to our parents or our family is because we didn't consent to it. And I'm saying that does not matter, because the situation is you're part of that family whether you like it or not. And
I will
again,
elaborate.
You have an obligation to care for your family members because no, you may not have chosen to be born, but you have been born. You are here. They have cared for you. They have raised you. You do have an obligation to them.
You do not have an obligation to somebody.
Evil is not
hold on,
to be in a relationship.
Hold on. Can I? You do not have
one
an
at a time,
obligation.
please.
You do not have an obligation to hang out with somebody.
It's
When we
crazy.
are talking about a low stakes situation, like being around family members, that is leagues different than you see someone drowning, you see someone being raped. These are high stakes situations where somebody will die. What we are talking about is going over to somebody's house on Thanksgiving. These two situations are so far outside of one versus the other in comparison.
Difference in scale, but not in
No.
type.
Do you
So do
have
you
an
think
obligation to hang out with
relationships-
anybody?
Yeah,
think
you do have
relationships
a,
aren't important?
Yes.
Do you think relationships and family is not important? Is not an important
Blood?
concept to being a human?
No,
It
no.
depends on who you are.
It completely dependent on you, your dependencies in life. You don't need if I don't need family personally. Because I can create my own family around me. I can create people that I care for.
Unless they
You
vote
should
for
not-
someone you
you
don't
should
like,
not-
and then
you
you're
should not-
cutting them
you should not
off.
to
But
feel-
yeah.
You should never feel an obligation to respect someone that you don't want to respect. Never.
I disagree. I think that, like, specifically with parents in particular, okay, because of the fact that they have given you life, okay, and you can say, well, you didn't consent to being alive. I mean, to even think about life in that way, it frames life as being some enormous punishment. Life is an enormous gift, okay? It's a gift.
No,
to
it's
be
neither.
Here. It's a gift to exist, and it's a gift to be here. And you owe your parents an enormous debt for giving you that gift and
This
for
is a
taking care of you,
religious outlook.
assuming that they didn't abuse you and assuming that they didn't violate their obligation to you. Otherwise, you do owe them that. You owe them an enormous favor.
A parent disrespecting their child is violating the obligation, and
I'm sorry.
You know what? Please let me finish. It is neutral. It is neutral to be born. It is not. It is not a gift. It is not a punishment. It is just what humans do.
If let me ask you this: if I somehow track down your Venmo and I Venmo you $2,000 that you didn't ask for, do you owe me now?
Yes, I do.
No.
That's
Okay?
insane.
No, you do not.
Absolutely
I do.
not.
No, you do
if
not.
I didn't ask
No,
for
you do not.
if I didn't ask for $2,000, if I didn't say I need some money, I'm really
That's
struggling,
not.
or anything like that, and somebody just randomly for whatever reason gives me $2,000, I don't owe them.
Do you think
anything.
your parents
No.
cared for you because it was a random thing?
No, my point
No,
is it doesn't
it's
matter why
biological.
somebody is doing something for you.
You're
My
Might
point
have
is that
been,
you
who
are
knows?
not.
They were forced to care for you. It's like
I'm
hormone.
assuming neither of you are gonna have children, right?
I
Of
have
course I'm gonna have
because they
children.
didn't
It's a neutral
they
act.
didn't consent to it though.
No, but it's not evil to have children.
No, I have 2 children.
Without
What
their
I will say
consent?
about that,
Hold on,
Yes, it's fine.
you're missing. So my point is, I don't think that my kids owe me anything when they are when they are adults and they are out of the house and they are on their own. If I need something, I'll ask. Sure, if something comes up and I'm like, hey, I'm in a spot for I need a ride to the airport or something like that, and they're like, actually, I don't really like you. Will it hurt my feelings? Yeah. Will it make me really bummed out? Make me sad? Yes, it absolutely will. But that is their right as human beings to say,
If you're
fuck off,
Often
Dad.
topical.
But it
your
makes them
kid-
bad people.
Wait,
You understand
topical.
that, right?
Wait. Let me see. Let me see.
Yes.
Often
I don't
topical.
think so.
Topical. Would you agree with this? If you disrespect your kids, you're now opening the door for them to disrespect you back.
I think if you are disrespectful to somebody, they express to you that they don't appreciate that, and you show that you don't really care, and you continue. But this goes back to that belief versus behavior thing. I think we're getting a little bit off topic, but my point here is that I don't think that my kids owe me anything. I don't think that they'll ever owe me anything. I would never lord that over their head. I'm not taking care of them so that later on I can cash in a ride to the airport or a visit at the hospital. I'm taking
That'd be
care
an
of them
evil
because
thing
I
to
love
expect.
them and I care about them.
That'd be an
no.
insane thing to expect. Why would you have a kid to then cash in later on because now you force a person to be your friend for life?
That's not.
You're
that's
like
not
literally
what's
just
being-
forcing someone
that's
to be
not-
a friend for life
simmering.
because you don't have the ability to have a relationship with a normal person and respect them. So you have to have something that you can disrespect and not have them disrespect you back. It's insane.
Disagreeing is disrespect?
No, it is not. It is it's snide comments about changing appearances when they don't want to. It's if they.
Sorry,
if they
Mom, you made fun of my hair once, so you can rot and die in the hospital. I'm not coming visit to you.
No.
Yeah,
exactly. Oh my
If your
God.
parent does this, if your parents does, this is just super basic. If you are a parent and you make a comment about your child's appearance, they will no longer be interacting with you to figure out their appearance because you are now seen as an evil person to them. You're now seen as like a person that's going to come down on them.
Look, my mom. I'll give you a personal example. I'll give you a personal example.
Let me finish. You should always be helping and boosting up your child. If you want to disrespect your child, don't be
Look,
like surprised.
Sometimes your kid needs to be told that their haircut's a mess and they look like a fool, right? My mom. I'll give you a personal example. My mom. When I was growing up, I wanted to get a mohawk. Okay, I wanted a really cool mohawk, and I wanted no shit, I wanted a dragon tattoo on my eye. My mom made fun of me for that, and thank God she did. Thank God she did. Right?
Gain that confidence. No, she destroyed your confidence. What a horrible.
No. What?
You have to learn how to deal with those things.
No. Oh, Mom, you really disrespect me. I'm growing into my scales. Okay.
Please, just let me finish. Your mom should back you up. She should expect you to probably get made fun of a little bit, and then when she comes home, she's like, you want to get
the eyeball of a dragon.
Well, not the eyeball, like the eye area, right?
We want the kid to experience the strife in public, not by their parents.
We have brought this into an absurd.
You want to
I kind of want to bring it back a little bit,
kid.
If I can bring it back a little bit to a little bit more grounded. I will say, like I said before, I have two kids. My daughter she had watched, I'm going to give you an example that I think of where a parent's responsibility lies here when we're talking about things like making fun of your appearance or things like that. My daughter had seen, I don't know if any of you guys have seen that movie, Raya the Last Dragon. One of the characters has like a half-shaved head kind of thing. She said, Dad, I want to get that haircut. And what I told her was, I said, listen, it is your body. That is your decision. However, I'm going to give you my advice here first. I don't think you're going to like it. I think you should sit on this for a little bit. I think you should wait, give it 2 months. And if in 2 months you still really want this, we can go talk. We can go get it checked out. We can take a look at it. It's hair. It will grow back. If you don't like it, whatever. My point here is that it is your job as a parent. It is your responsibility as a parent. And I would say it is your obligation.
Yeah, that's where your obligation comes in.
Wait. Let me finish talking. It is your obligation as a parent to be a safe place for your child. And if your child does not feel that you are a safe place to come to talk to ask for advice or things like that, that is your reflection as a parent. And your child does not owe you feeling like you are safe. If you are not reflecting that, or you are not someone that they feel safe around, that's a you problem.
Before you go, Fairy Queen, I'm going to pass it to you. I'm going to read some of these super chats, make a little money, right? But just before I do that, feeling safe is different than being safe. And children can feel a lot of things that are just not, like, a child can feel unsafe in his bedroom because the night light's not on. Does that make him unsafe?
Yes.
No.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, let me read these super chats. We'll argue about it in a second. Super chats first, because I feel unsafe if I don't read my super chats. Okay. $5 from another new account to say, concerned about beliefs that might be harmful to children in the relationship. Thoughts on James Younger then? $5 from Blahika Blah. If anyone held up any explicitly extremely partisan political things all across their house, that's an issue regardless of their political side. $5 more from Blahika Blah. Wait, so is it okay for parents to cut off their children for being disrespectful of them making snide comments against their conservative beliefs?
We have legal obligations until 8.
$5 from Cameraman 502. The corrosive nature of left-wing consent culture and weaponization of therapeutic language is on full display here. $5 from another new account. We currently live in a time where parents can go to jail if their children commit crimes, but it's okay to cut parents off for being disrespectful. $10 from Per Thompson. Great show. Fascinating discussion. Thank you. $5 from Smokey D. Bandit. If respect is not owed, then these entitled pricks aren't owed respect by their family. $5 generic plays. My dad told me I wasn't his kid in front of his friends and my half-siblings, then laughed at me for crying. Do I owe him respect? $2 from Turtle Emergency. How much money for you to get the eye tattoo? More than $2. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, wait, I have a question for you.
Well, we were throwing
Oh,
it to
for
Fairy
the
Queen.
I just want to ask, if your child is crying about a monster in the closet, what is your response?
To go.
don't get. Can I respond? Don't get the eye of Sauron tattooed on your eyeball. That's insane. Okay, and it's okay to say that it's insane. Like
No, wait.
that's
Oh, so wait. If your kid was crying about a monster in the closet, what would you?
Tell them that there's no
Fairy
monster in
Queen.
the
No, Fairy
closet.
Queen. Fairy Queen. She just made a snide comment. Fairy Queen, go.
oh my god.
If a child
Look,
is
this is
crying about a monster in the closet, what do you do? This is super easy. As any parent should know this.
okay. Well, you obviously try to make them feel better after they're frightened. What's the point of that?
How? No.
That
How do you make them feel better?
you tell them that there's no monster in the closet.
Do you check the closet? Yes or no?
Yeah, you open the closet, you can see
Why
there's
would
no
you do
closet.
that? It's irrational.
It's irrational, but because it quiets them. That's why. That's the only reason. why you do
No,
it.
because the perception is that you're actually caring about them and you're actually doing something to check and make sure that their fears are taken care of.
Okay, but when you
It's all
are in
about
your
perception to
20s,
children.
but when you're in your
They don't
20s,
obviously
when
know
you're
there's a.
yeah, but when you're 25 years old, right? You
You
should
don't
not
know
be
everything.
asking for that level of care from your adult parents, right?
Who's
And if
asking
you're
for
upset,
that?
well, but like this is what we're talking about. We're talking about
No, we're
like
talking about
children, like having
16-year-olds, 14-year-olds, 10-year-olds. We're not talking
well,
about 25-year-olds.
yes, we are. We're talking about
No, we're
anyone
talking about
who's
what leads
having
up
Hold
to
on, a
you getting
14-year-old?
disconnected from the parents. Yes, no,
well,
we're talking about the constant things that happen through your life that lead up to 25-year-old that you cut off from your parents.
No, we're not
I
just
don't know
Yes.
how
talking
this
about that.
relates.
We are talking about what we're talking about is a wide spectrum of relationships of people who choose to split up, either divorce or they don't want to talk to their parents or they don't want to talk to their kids because they have different political beliefs. That's what we're talking about, okay?
So
We're not
wait. Is it perception that kids care about? Yes or no?
is it perception that kids care about?
Yes, not like actual safety, but the perception of safety.
This is highly pedantic. What are you asking
No, it
me?
is not.
Get
It is
to it. Yes, it
directly
is.
to the point. It is directly to the point. You should always give the perception that you are a safe space, even if
Sure, but
that means kind of coddling a little bit and being like, okay,
No.
maybe,
you
Okay,
can't
you
over coddle.
maybe
You
we
can't
will,
over coddle. Your parents are allowed to be
maybe we will get
judgmental
the
of you.
haircut that you
yeah.
wanted in 2 months if you think about it enough. Maybe you really wanted that haircut. We'll go do it. Who cares? It's hair.
No.
Hold on,
No, I'm
what
sorry.
if-
I'm sorry. Like
Does this apply to things like grades? Like if your parents expect certain grades of you, and if you don't get those grades, they get disappointed. Is that abuse? Is that
Abuse, no.
disrespect?
Wait. Is overfeeding your children abuse?
Yes.
So how could this not be abuse?
By having expectations for kids to perform
No.
at certain levels during their scholastic experience?
This becomes another. I think this is again a behavior versus belief kind of thing.
yeah,
I
exactly.
will say there's nothing wrong with expecting your child to get good grades. In fact, I think that's a great thing. I think that's a wonderful
Awesome
parenting thing, is to expect your child to work hard in school and get good grades so that you can set them up for a good future. However,
Yes, and
when
sometimes
come
if
home
they
with-
get
wait,
bad
wait,
grades,
let me
you
finish.
need to
Stop
have
cutting
Come home with
consequences.
bad grades. It depends. That's why
Stop
we're
cutting
talking
off.
about. That's why we're talking about the difference between behavior and belief. I think my kids should get good grades. I want them to get good grades. If they get bad grades, I'm not going to sit there and go, "Hey, why are you such a fucking idiot? Why are you bringing home D's?
Obviously.
Why are you retarded?" But what I would
We're
say
trying to
is,
coddle a
"Hey,
little bit.
what's going on here? Let's work through this. Let's figure this out. Let's figure out if you're going through some problems." But this comes back to, again, I want my kids to feel like I am a safe place where they can come talk to me if they're having problems, if they're having issues, if they don't feel safe in some kind of situation. And a lot of that comes down to them feeling respected.
But part of the way that you show respect as a parent, and this is true, especially like if you work with older kids, if you work with not kids, but like with undergraduate students, like in their 20s. Okay, part of the way that you show respect is by being authentic. Okay, by not just letting your kids or the people in your care know that you are safe, like you're a calm and stable person, but also that you're an honest person, that you're someone who you can go to for genuine advice, so you can get real advice on what's actually happening. And the problem with like having the demeanor that both you and both Sybil Sling have like not you so much, to be very clear. I think like you're a little bit different, but the problem with over coddling, okay, is that you are lying. You are being inauthentic. You don't think that that haircut looks good. You think that haircut is going to make your son look weird, and you're afraid of sending him to school that way. If you sit down with your 16-year-old son and you are extremely sugary and saccharine and you overpour it and you're too pushed over, your son is not going to respect you. He's not going to, you're not a safe place and you're not a safe place, right? Because you're not a person to be respected. How can he hope to trust you, right? To be somebody that will advocate for him if you don't have the ability to advocate against him for his own benefit.
Those are two different metrics. That one is safety and one is being honest. You can be honest while also being safe.
No, I think
Yes.
I think that in order to be safe, you have to be honest. That's
No,
part of like what it is to be a safe person.
You can be
Yes.
you can have good communication with your children and not have to like do blunt truths 24/7. Is Santa real? What is Santa real? Can you answer that?
Also, like, are we expecting our parents?
Wait. Can you answer that? Is Santa
Fuck
real?
off.
Are we expecting our parents to be?
What's wrong with you? You do sound like you had blue hair in school.
Is Easter Bunny real?
Christ.
Fairy Queen, is Easter Bunny real? Fairy Queen, is Easter Bunny real? Please.
Oh my God! What are
You guys are acting like
Queen of England?
No. You want the blunt truth. You want the blunt. Tell me the blunt truth. As me, 5 years old.
Wow, Jesus Christ, dude! I mean,
sometimes it's okay to be like.
I don't know who dumped gasoline in your oatmeal this morning, man, but it's not that deep, okay? Jesus Christ!
No. I think all of these, like you making fun of your kid's hair at any point in time, if that ever comes up as an idea, that shows like your inability to be a respectful parent. I think
my mom's poked fun at me plenty of times. I've gone through weird phases. She's made fun of me. She never really controlled me and stuff, but she would guide me sometimes, and I still love her. She's not perfect. I don't think any parent is perfect. She's made mistakes. She's made like awful remarks that I've like held grudges against her. I've made awful remarks towards her. That's family. I'm still there for her. I still love her.
She shouldn't be acting like your age. That's my problem with a lot of parents.
I think if I can kind of try to bring the temperature.
Hold on, $2 for Turtle Emergency. Santa is not real. Breaking news.
What?
Gang. Okay, thank you for the $2.
Since when?
Oh my God. Can't believe it.
Anyway, if I can bring the temperature down a little bit, I think that there is a difference. And I think that there's a spectrum between coddling, being brutally honest, and somewhere between being a human being. I think it is perfectly healthy to give your kids some shit. My daughter and I have banter all the time back and forth where she will call me names, I will call her names. We're not being mean. There's no venom behind it. That's the kind of relationship that we have. And I have the same kind of relationship with my mother. Our love language is often calling each other dumb, telling each other to shut up, things like that. We're not saccharine and sickly sweet and disgusting, but we know that we are safe to have these kind of conversations with each other. And she has treated me that way since I was small, because as a single mom, she treated me not like a child, but like an adult from the very beginning, to the appropriate levels for my age. I think there's a difference when we're talking about you are making fun of your kid because they made a bad decision, and it's in a kind of a joking, ribbing, fun sort of way versus a disrespectful sort of way. And I think that you have an obligation as a parent to be respectful to your kids. Does that mean that you can never make fun of them, or you can never say something snide to them or a side comment? No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is there's a fundamental respect. And if your child does not feel that you respect them, I believe that that is a failing of you as a parent as well. Your child should feel respected and safe in their home. It does not mean that you need to coddle them. It does not mean that you cannot ever tell them the truth. And it does not mean that you have to sugarcoat every word that you say. But if they do not feel that they are respected as a human being, you are failing in some way.
This is exactly what I want to get at, is it's about the perception of those comments. If those comments come out and they feel venomous at any point in time, you're no longer a safe place. If you actually truly feel that their hair is weird when you call it weird, then you're messing up as a parent.
Okay, but the problem is not all feelings are valid or justified.
And like if you're making like sarcastic comments and they feel free to make sarcastic comments back, then that's a safe place. But I see a lot of parents who go and make sarcastic comments to their kids, but once they do it to them back, they start going ham. They start going, "What the fuck are you talking back to me for?"
Yes, that makes them kind of a bad parent. $5 from Portland is burning. Santa is real. I spent more money, so I am correct. I mean,
True.
more money so far. But thank you for the $5. My
Repeal Citizens
part of
United.
my frustration with this conversation, for both you, often topical, and to a greater extent you, sizzling, is this
Appreciate
idea
it.
of all that's required is that the person feel a certain way, and then it's okay to cut someone off or to not these things. The problem is not all feelings are valid. And gang, and this is to you, dear audience. Sometimes your
I
feelings are
disagree.
stupid. Sometimes your
I
feelings are
disagree.
stupid, and you
I
shouldn't feel that
completely
way, and
disagree.
it's wrong for you to feel that way.
I would love a chance to. I love you, Wick. I do not mean to get this heated. I just love
No,
conversation.
I'm not mad at you.
Okay.
But
I appreciate
I
it.
I
All
like
right.
this. But here's the thing. Like me, if I had gotten, like, for example, if I'll
I
use
do
you
not
as
hate
an
any of you.
example,
I just
Ghosty,
don't-
because you're here, right? If Ghosty, right, one day was late to one of my shows, okay?
Oh.
A little late to one of my shows.
Uh-oh.
And then I threw a fit. I got super offended. How fucking dare you be 5 minutes late to my show? I'm feeling like you've disrespected me and you've done all these things. I feel this way. No, that feeling, I can feel a little annoyed. That's fine. But that feeling of like I've been personally like cut off in a like all these things, that's not valid. That's not okay to feel. And if I start acting on those feelings, that doesn't make it okay either, right?
This is the disagreement I have. I think it is completely fine to feel those feelings. It's just dependent on what you do with those feelings.
If you were acting that way, what I would ask is, do you think it would be appropriate for somebody, a guest on your show, if you treated them that way, for them to be like, all right, fuck you, Wick, I'm actually not going
Look,
to show up on another one of your shows again.
people
This is
do
bullshit.
that all the time for the littlest things. They're like, "Oh,
True.
yeah,
True.
you've
Well,
done
we're
this
talking-
or said
I
this
wanna
to
say
me,
what
Wick.
we're
How dare
specifically
you? I'm
talking
never
about
coming."
here.
Yeah, you don't have to be here.
Wick the
right?
bridge burner. Wick the bridge burner coming at it again.
No, but
It
my point
happens.
is, if you are disrespectful to somebody in such a, in this case, it's kind of an easier layup of a question because we're talking about a very obvious show of disrespect here. If someone's late and you're like, "Fuck you, you're late, you're a piece of shit, and you don't respect this show," I think it's completely acceptable for that other person to go, "Well, actually, fuck this. I'm never showing up here again, and I'm cutting you out of my life, my existence, whatever." I think that that's perfectly acceptable. It comes down to a matter of what is someone personally comfortable with, and that is something that only they can answer, and that
That's
is
not
something
true,
that.
though. I mean,
How do you
yes,
mean?
yes, in the fact that only they can answer what they're comfortable with and not. But we can make judgments based on their behavior. Like if someone gets super heated and offended every time someone disagrees with them, I can make judgments about, oh, every time someone mildly disagrees with this person, they go nuclear. Well, I can make judgments based on and put that person into a category of, oh, this person's a bad person, right? I'm being reductive here, obviously, but I could be like, oh, if you behave like that, you're probably a bad person. Much like, to bring it back to the topic a little bit, if you are getting a divorce because your significant other has different politics than you, other variables aside, I'm kind of thinking that you're the problem.
I wouldn't disagree, but what I will say about that is I also would say that that person, if there is somebody who exists who will get a divorce only because they have a political disagreement with their spouse, no other reason whatsoever. It's a perfectly happy marriage. Everybody's great. They've been together for 50 years. Somehow politics has never come up. And then one day they find out that they're a Republican and that person is a Democrat, or vice versa. And they decide that that is enough reason to break it off. I don't think it was going to work anyway. I think that at that point we can't say, "Well, you need to stick it out." I think at that point we need
After
to say, "You
20
need to
years?
figure out your own shit." Like,
I just don't understand the point in even judging. Honestly, like it feels just like a nothing. Like it feels just like any other like mismatch in a relationship. Why do I care? This person divorced after
I think
20
you can
years.
judge somebody for a reason why they divorce somebody. I think that's totally fine, but I also wouldn't say that that means that their reason is invalid for them.
But I like on
For them, they
average.
obviously for them they
Mhm.
obviously feel like it's a valid reason, and if they feel like it's a valid reason, then that's a marriage that wasn't going to work out. And so I think that at that point, you gotta know when to fold them. 50% of marriages end in divorce. I can't imagine that every single one of those is spousal abuse. I can't imagine that every single one of those 50 is people screaming and yelling at each other constantly. I
Yeah, I
wouldn't
think
say that of
that's
those 50%, that means that 10% of those people
yeah, I
are
think in
horrible
I will.
society,
people, or
I think in
25%.
society we have a problem with selfishness, and I think this is one of those things that is coming out.
I
I
disagree. I
no.
think that
I don't
marriage,
think.
I guess it comes down to what do we think marriage is
Commitment.
is also part of this. I think that marriage is, for me, the way that I believe that, or the way that I feel about marriage. I'm not religious in any way whatsoever. I view marriage as a sort of commitment and a contract with another person, an agreement that you come to with somebody that has a built-in clause to get out of that agreement. It's called a divorce. If you enter into
Wait,
this
did you?
agreement,
I don't mean to get too personal here, but like
by all means,
sickness
I'm
and
an
in
open book.
health, like is that part of the vows, right? Sickness and in
Who
health,
cares about the
rich or
house?
poor, etc.
So those, in my opinion, well, first of all, I will say those aren't legally binding. And
They're
if
just
you are,
religious stuff.
Okay.
if you are somebody who, and this goes back to, again, maybe a fundamental difference in how we view what a marriage is. Um, I think if marriage wasn't a contract, if marriage wasn't an agreement, it wouldn't come with tax benefits. Um, so at the end of the day, that comes back down to a sort of personal belief and a sort of personal view on how you view this level of commitment, what this commitment is, and what it means. To somebody who thinks that it is an agreement before God, till death do you part, is going to view the subject of divorce and the reasons for divorce and what is and is not acceptable completely differently than somebody who views it as a function of the state,
I would
a
definitely
thing where
understand judgment
where
from
you
that.
and I are living together. We've been living together. We've been in a relationship for a very long time. I think at this point, I am fine with making it very expensive to break up with you so that we can get some tax benefits. I think that that person is going to view divorce in a very different way. And I don't think that that is an indictment of their character. I think that that is just a reflection of their beliefs.
But again, and I'm going to circle back to the statistics that I mentioned at the very beginning. Part of the problem, like with what this conversation is having, it's just going to be true that if you are heterosexual and if you want to date someone, and if you're struggling and you're trying to find somebody, you would greatly open up and increase your odds of finding somebody if you're willing to date across the political aisle, because of how increasingly polarized people are becoming. And so, like, when you say that you limit yourself like to only a very select group of people, it means that you limit the dating pool of people from who you know, you limit the people who you might be able to marry, you limit the friends that you make, you limit the job opportunities that you're able to find. Because that's the other, frankly, like, just to be honest, if love isn't enough of a reason, money surely should be. Okay, like, part of the problem with alienating people, right, and being so quick to cut people off, is that you cut off opportunities that outside of friendship, such as finding a friend of a friend who might have an internship available, or finding a friend of a friend that has a new job that opened up across the country, or maybe that person's going to an event, or maybe they're going to a new church, or maybe they're doing who knows what, but they really want you to come and meet the rest of the guys. But now you're not going to go there, you're not going to meet those guys, you're not going to find out about the shiny new opportunity that might have exploded your career into awesomeness because you didn't want to make friends with that person, right?
I
So
Oh, sorry.
yeah.
No, it's fine.
I agree with you. For the record, I think
Two
that
euros, just real quick. €2, from Mary Mead Parker. Trumpism isn't quote unquote a minor political difference. Oh,
That's what my point would be.
$5
I think
from Turtle
there's more.
Emergency. Just one moment. I'm an atheist, and my wedding vows are binding for me. It was a vow on my honor to a person I love. Don't act like it is all about God belief. And $10 from Per Thompson. Why did this devolve into talking about 14-year-olds? Seems like the consent crowd is sliding into this area because they're having trouble convincing anyone in the adult setting. And $5 from Smokey D. Bandit.
What?
Over modeling is the exact problem with these two. Their parents should have taught them their opinion doesn't matter that much. Thank you. For the
So
$5. Go ahead.
I will say, I agree with you that when you alienate people based on politics, based on political differences, or any kind of disagreement whatsoever, and you decide that you don't want to be friends with people or don't want to interact with people based on those kinds of things, you absolutely do miss out on these opportunities. You absolutely will miss out on networking. You will miss out on meeting people. You will miss out on opportunities. These are things that people need to take into consideration. These are the kind of things that only one person can make that decision for themselves. At the end of the day, you need to think about, do I care more about this political thing that is super important to me, and because of that I am willing to forsake future opportunities? And if somebody is willing to do that, if somebody has taken the time to think about that and reflect on that and has come to the decision, it's not a decision that I would agree with, but it's not a decision that I would condemn somebody for.
I think
Well,
if I may, and I'll let you guys go in a second, but you're putting on something that I think is getting to the heart of it.
Mhm.
I want people to care more about their marriages and their families than their politics. And right now, that's not what's happening. They're caring more about their politics, their opinions, their ideas than their families and their marriages. And I think that's bad. I think that's bad for society.
Yeah.
That's bad for them personally. And I think that is just bad for the culture overall. But I want to hear from Fairy Queen, then Sizzling, then Ghosty. That's the order we're going to go in.
Yeah, we are getting to the heart of the issue. And I think the heart of the issue is pragmatism versus principles, okay? Do you want to try to increase and to make the world a better place by holding a very specific set of principles and being ironclad to them and holding on to them? Because you can do that, right? And maybe you can feel you have a certain degree of moral purity by making that choice, but it also means that you will be less effective in actually doing good and actually achieving, because of all of the reasons that I've mentioned, because it will be harder for you to make connections. It will become harder and harder and harder effectively for you to be able to achieve or do much of anything. The more ironclad and the more like unmoving and unyielding your principles are. But the flip side of it is the issue of pragmatism, right? If you focus on being extremely pragmatic, if what you care most of all is like just getting things done and being effective and accomplishing your goals, then it means that you really risk abandoning all principles, right? And you risk like doing some pretty horrific things in order to achieve the ends that you're looking for, right? So it's a balance of these two questions, right? So when we're thinking about this on an individual level, like when we're thinking about relationships, okay, you have to decide for yourself, okay? Are you a person that wants to pragmatically to try to actually make the world a better place, to try to materially improve it? Is that something that you care about? Because if it is, then frankly, like you should be more on the side of Wick, me, and Ghosty, okay? Because this is what we are saying. But if you tilt more on the side of principles, okay, I want the world to be this way. But my principles are what they are. Pragmatism be damned, consequences be damned. I'm sticking to them. Then just realize, right, that the shiny world, the dreams, the things that you want to have happen, like the good things in life, it's going to be a lot more difficult for you to achieve.
I think you have very limited time on this earth. You have a very limited time here, and it's your goal to make as many people think like you because you think that you are the most correct? So when you are standing at the gate trying to see who you're going to be letting into your circle, into your life.
Gang, it's not a threat. He's not threatening Fairy Queen. Sorry, go ahead.
What?
Gates of St.
I don't even
Peter?
know.
I had to think about that for a
understand.
second too.
I don't
Hurley
even
Heavenly
understand.
Gates.
A lot of people.
If you're standing at the gates of your friendship, your inner circle, you can either be pragmatic or you can be principled. Or you could try to do both at the same time. You could try to be as pragmatic as possible while holding to as many principles as
you can try, but it's
let him go. Let him go. Sizzling. Go ahead.
Yeah, I didn't interrupt you. You can always let you'll be going through life. This is your journey. You're going through life and you'll hold principles. Those principles will change, and you will find that sometimes you have to be more pragmatic in certain areas. Sometimes principles are fucking bullshit. Sometimes they were just given to you by your parents. Those weren't even needed. Those weren't necessary. Those weren't even you. And then once you figure out who you are, you stand at the gate, you figure out who you want in your life. It is not an obligation by any person that brought you here that's going to be disrespectful to you to like bring those people in. It is completely up to you what you want to do with your life. You don't have to spend time wasting it with people that are disrespecting you. You don't have to spend time wasting it on people that are not going to change for you. You should be changing the people that are going to be impacted most by your words, by your actions, by your community. You shouldn't be wasting it on the people that are just going to be wasting your time.
Okay, let's step away from the gates of St. Peter, okay? I'd prefer not to look, into the angelic halo, okay? As the gates of heaven open, okay, and God is waiting for me, okay? Let's move away from that metaphor. But like if your friendship is at an end, right? If it's somebody that you really care about, like like, I'm sorry, but like, you are going to sacrifice pragmatism for principles. If you really are a principled person, by the way, like, you can't just nick it away and like shoo it off like whenever the principle happens to be inconvenient for you, right? If I say, for instance, that I don't know, if I say, for instance, that I'm anti-drug, if I'm anti-smoking, right? But it's actually more practical and it's actually really helps me now. So let me
Oh,
pick
the
up this
evidence
cigarette
convinced
and
me.
smoke it, right? Well, then I didn't really have the principle in the first place, right?
Maybe it was
Then
a bad
I
principle.
was no. Well, that has nothing to do with the fact that I'm not principled, right? I've
No,
broken, I've
no,
violated
you
my
can.
values, and the fact that like it's an inconvenience, it means that I never
You
had that
should change
principle in the first
principles
place.
over
Okay,
time.
it means it's
You
not
should
really a
look back on your
principle; it's
past
just an
as dumb.
opinion. It's not the same thing, right?
You should always look back on your past principles as not needed.
Moral
Or you should
inclinations
be
are not the
always
same
trying to
things as
scrape away
principles.
dead wood.
Principles are a
You
set
should
of
not be
rules
building up
that
dead
you
wood.
follow that in order to help yourself be a better person. And if you shit on your principles, then you are being a shit person. You are
No,
making
you
a
should
bad
test your
decision.
principles.
That's what you're doing.
Constantly test your principles so you can see if they're valuable.
So if I think that smoking is a bad thing, and if I see all this research and I think it's mean and it's immoral for me to do it in public, should I start smoking in public in a huge crowded
No, you
room,
should look at
tons
the
of
evidence
kindergartners to
given by
test it, right?
scientists.
To
No, you should look at
experiments to see if
evidence
it
given
works
by
out?
scientists. You don't have to
Yeah, but
personally test things. You can look at people who are testing it first. Like, well, I'm like, this is crazy. You know, this is like we look at science. We don't look at
no,
like our
you are.
individual.
No, I am making a very simple claim. Okay, if you really have a principle, if it's really a principle that you have,
What's the
you
principle?
won't just throw it
No,
away.
what is the principle?
I have already told you earlier before. Okay, if this is really a principle that you hold, you can't just toss in the garbage whenever it's inconvenient for it to be your principle. Okay,
But
if
you
it's
should
really a
toss it in the
principle, you
garbage when
live by it.
evidence says otherwise.
Do you know what an important principle of science is? It's actually disagreement. I think it's actually a really dangerous idea to go in the world and like try to make everybody think exactly like you. If that's your goal, I think that's really dangerous. I
No,
think
no, 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 no,
disagreements
no.
and different beliefs are very important in society.
That's half
Eh,
of it. Half of it, the other half is you should be feeding off other people, and when they tell you you are wrong, you should be telling other people when they're wrong because you should be you should be the person with all the experiences that you have taken. You should have the most correct opinion. Correct? Does everyone agree with that? Everyone agrees that you have the most correct opinions right at this second. Correct?
Sure, but cutting out other people that disagree with you isn't
No,
good
I'm not talking about
either.
disagreement. No, no, I'm talking about logical systems that got you to those positions. So
Oh
like
God.
let's talk about those principles. Is this a principle you gained from a parent that just told you to take on this principle, or was this principle gained from you seeing how how the
No, it
world
was my
works?
peer group in X who convinced me that cutting off and divorcing my wife because she voted for a Republican once,
I'm
leaving my
I'm glad
kids
that
in
you
the
brought it
cold,
back to
and
that
dodging child support was the morally correct thing to do. That's what
because I want
my
to
belief
ask
came from.
the panel, when we're talking about political differences, that kind of expands out. I want to know, do you think it's acceptable to divorce somebody over a disagreement on abortion?
No.
So if you want a kid, but your partner says, I am pro-choice, and you are concerned about, they don't say, I want an abortion. If I get pregnant, I'm going to have an abortion. But
That's
they do
well,
say,
that's a
if I, well,
let me
hang
explain the
on.
difference here. If they're like, I'm going to have an abortion, and I'm like, hey, that's my kid, please don't abort. That's not the same as someone saying, I'm pro-choice and I will vote accordingly, or I'm pro life and I'll vote accordingly. These are
Well, no, my
substantively
point,
different things.
no. And that's why I was trying to kind of elaborate on my question here. If, let's say, I want a kid, but my wife says, I am pro-choice, it is going to be in my head the whole time of like, well, if she is pro choice and I am pro life, there is a chance that when she gets pregnant, she will decide to abort the child. I think in a case like that, it is completely acceptable to, first of all, you should, like I've said over and over again through this whole thing, you should have that conversation first. That should be your first line of attack, I guess, for lack of a better term that I can come up with here. It should be to have that conversation. But I think if you are at an impasse there, I think that that's perfectly acceptable to say, then this
I,
relationship is
I,
not going to
I
work out. This
disagree,
marriage
and,
is
and
not
let
going to
me
work
tell you
out.
why. Because I'm sorry, Fair Queen, but the reason this is different, right, is because you're assuming, and you're making an assumption. It's a common assumption that people make, that belief leads ultimately to behaviors, and it must lead
Right.
to these specific sets of behaviors. And that's not always the case. In fact, in a lot of times, that's not the case. For example, I'm pro-choice, but I would never get an abortion. I would never be involved in an abortion. I think abortion's morally wrong. However, I don't think it's my decision, and so how I vote is for pro-choice, because that's something that people need to make a decision on their own. If my significant other got an abortion of my child, that is fundamentally different than if they came in just disagreeing with me about abortion in general. Fairy Queen,
I don't think
and I'll let Fairy Queen go. I gotta use the restroom, but go ahead.
Yep. So let me see. Topical. So I actually think so. I said earlier at the very beginning, like before we started, I do think that you need to be politically aligned on things that matter. So things like children, things like abortion, things like birth control, things like if you are if you're going to be a religious family or if you're going to be a secular family, like those types of like questions, right? But because that's specific to your relationship, that's specific to you and your spouse, like functioning together as a family, right? But like when I was talking about political beliefs, like things that I think are silly to break up over, it would be over things that are not impacting your relationship, right? So foreign policy is like a really good example, right? And this is obviously going to depend like specifically on who you are too. And I'll be the first to admit that, right? So for instance, we have like an Orthodox Jew and she's in love with a Muslim man, okay? They are not going to get along. Probably, I'm going to guess they probably don't get along well on Palestine, right? That's going to be like an issue. Like if they argue and if they're constantly fighting about it, it probably would be more justified to divorce or to break up over that, right? But I don't think that would be the same, right? For say, a pair of Baptists, in South Carolina arguing about like, Israel versus Palestine, because it's not something that's like specific to their relationship and to who they are as people.
Sure, and I agree with you. But I think where I'm coming from on this, and where I'm viewing on this is that every person's belief structure is slightly different. Um, and I think if something comes up to the extent where you are willing to, let's be honest, go through a lot of trouble to end a relationship. Like a divorce is a lot of work. A divorce is messy. A divorce is a huge pain in the ass. It is easier to stay married than to get a divorce in a lot of situations. Um, if your beliefs are so core and fundamental to you that you are willing to go through that, I just don't think that I can say that that is a failing on your part. Because I would say that at that point we are talking about something that is like you mentioned with the Israel Palestine with those kind of conversations. I don't think that we can morally condemn someone for something like that. Um, I get a divorce over Israel Palestine? No. Can I understand somebody getting a divorce for that? No. I can't. I can't fathom that because that is not something that affects me in any way. But if it's something that affects you to such a fundamental level that you are willing to get a divorce, I think that there is something else there. Um
that's the part I would
than
like to
than
challenge.
than just a political disagreement.
I think it's only like you can't feel it when we're talking about it, but I think in a situation where your partner has now cared about an issue, like I don't even know, like let's just say
Yeah,
yeah,
we
Israel
can say it.
Palestine so much that they're like every single conversation is about Palestine. How much like I feel like I just like you can just be annoyed by a partner enough to just divorce. Like it's not like the end of the world to divorce. Like to end
Well,
a
I think that
relationship.
comes back to that belief behavior thing. If it has gotten to a point where you can't have a conversation with your partner about anything without their feelings on the plight of the Palestinian people and why the Israelis are awful or
That
vice
that
versa, then
yeah.
that is a different thing entirely than just saying we have a disagreement on this.
I don't
And
know. I
my
don't know if
my
that's
point is
true.
Yep.
my point is
I don't
I
know.
don't
I don't know if you can separate belief and
well,
behavior
hang
like
on.
that.
Let me
So
say I
strong.
don't think,
Bet you
and
can.
maybe this is me making an assumption here. I don't think that that person who says we disagree on Israel versus Palestine, I want a divorce. I don't think that that person exists.
I
Or if they do, I think that one of them exists in the entire world. I don't think
yeah, that's
that
fine.
I don't
so
know.
my point
I
is I think that we're talking about something that is either such a small subset of people to be not a problem at all. I don't think that people are getting divorces just because they disagree. They get along great. This isn't a point of contention in their marriage. This isn't something that comes up all the time. This isn't something that causes huge strife in their relationship, but they're getting a divorce anyway. I just don't think that person exists.
Well, the
Well,
whole
little
reason we're talking, hold on,
disagreements.
I'll give it to you in a second, Gussie. The reason
Okay.
we're talking about this conversation in the first place is because at least one of them does, and they tweeted about it, and
Well,
here
we
we
don't
are
know
talking
that.
about it,
No,
right?
wait. That's the point I think we were missing. Is if I don't
Well, I
think
want to
we can. I don't think we can find a
quickly, then I'm
person
gonna
that
give
would
it to
say I
Ghost.
would
Hang
vote
on.
for Trump. I would vote
wanna-
for Trump, and then also say, like, give any kind of good justification to
I
why
wanna
he would
interject.
suspend a
I want to
constitution.
disagree with you. So what I think is the conversation that we're having here, just from going off of just the one tweet. I didn't do any other research into this lady. I don't know anything about her. What it sounded like was 8 years of arguments, 8 years of fighting. This is what I'm talking about. This is not the person who says, "You voted for Trump? Fuck
I
you,
thought she
I'm
said
out."
no
That never
fighting.
happened.
I
No,
thought
there
she
was
said there was.
fighting. No,
No, they fought.
it was an
They
issue
said
Oh,
for
I must have
8 years.
misunderstood the
Yeah,
tweet. I
but-
thought she was saying they had a perfect relationship until Trump, and then
Yeah, and then
Trump
they fought for
destroyed the
years.
marriage.
It was
Fights
8 years
happen.
of fighting, she said.
Okay,
Because
I
MAGA
understand.
And that's
for
why I'm
8
saying that the
years,
person
yeah.
who just gets a divorce just because of a disagreement and nothing else, that's why I'm saying I don't think that person exists.
But-
even in the conversation we're having here, just from the assumptions that we have to make from this one tweet, they're fighting constantly. Or they're fighting enough that it's a significant
enough.
issue.
Yeah, but that's a failure on their part. On both
No,
of their parts.
But I also don't think that they should
we
be
don't know
together
who it's
then.
a failure on. We can't
It's
say
Again-
from
who's a
one.
failure on.
It
It's a
can
relationship.
stem.
It's a relationship. We have two people.
It can stem from a single issue, though, such as like Israel and Palestine or voting for Trump. Your marriage might be perfect outside of that, but once you start like getting in your head, like, I care about this genocide so much or whatever, or I care about not voting for Trump so much, that
think
can start
someone can stop that?
impacting other parts of your relationship, like not wanting to sleep with that person or just constantly being annoyed by that person, to the point where they end up breaking up. And it really does stem from just that one political difference.
Yes,
can
and
understand
to
that
answer
one.
your question, Sizzling, yes, you can't control how much you care about a certain thing to an extent.
Yeah,
You can.
That's what, I really truly cannot sympathize becoming like a radical on those issues. I really truly can't. But I can sympathize with breaking up with someone who was. Like, I can very easily.
So I want to push back a little bit on what you said there, Ghosty, in that it can stem kind of what you were saying there. I agree with that. Your political beliefs or disagreement in a marriage can stem into or branch into other issues, like, oh, suddenly you don't want to sleep with that person or you don't want to spend as much time with that person. But at that point, we're talking about there are other issues there too. The sole reason is not just the disagreement, it is the behavior around that disagreement at that point. And so my point is, I don't think, and I stand by this, I don't think that person exists who solely gets a divorce because they disagree with somebody.
Well,
I think it's
hold
because
on.
of their behavior around these
Sure,
other
but that's not the
things.
point of the conversation. The
I-
point of the
I think
conversation is, just real quick, the point of the conversation, no, I don't think anyone from a single instance divorces like that. But we're talking about how people quite often, in my opinion, let these little things fester, breed contempt and disillusionment with each other, and lead to larger problems that last months, years, and eventually will lead to divorce.
But
And I
this
think
is
that's
kind of what I was
wrong.
talking about. This has nothing to do with politics. It's literally just communication. This has nothing to do with politics. If you're bad at communication and politics is part of that bad communication, you can say, yes, I would want a divorce because of politics, but it's because of the communication with the politics.
No, but you
like,
kind of
the
gave this
root
example
cause-
earlier.
The root catalyst in the root thing you will blame is the politics. Because you we can like say, what if Trump never happened? Would you be in these arguments? No, but we don't live in that world. The Trump is a thing. It caused these fights. So now what do you do with those fights? You probably divorce after a while.
You learn how you're committed to somebody, so you're supposed to learn how to deal with their differences. I think a great indicator of what a good relationship is how you guys fight or how you guys deal with conflict. If you guys can get through conflict in a very reasonable, mature, healthy manner, that's a healthy relationship. And you should be able to accept like vast differences from somebody you're committed to and love.
I completely agree, but we're talking about the people who can't accept those. So like we're talking from the perspective
those are worse
of
people.
We're talking about the perspective of we are the people that are trying in this relationship. We're trying very hard to communicate with this person, and every single attempt is failing. This is our perspective.
Yeah, they're
Well,
weak and wrong.
what I
Yes.
want to say is, so I
No,
agree with
you
you.
can't just say that.
Yes,
you
I
can't
can.
just blame. No,
I just did. It's easy.
after trying so long. We talked earlier about how trying was all that matters with parenting. So if I'm trying in my relationship with my wife, if I'm trying, that's all that matters. If I'm trying to communicate with her and it's not working, then it's over. It's over.
Until she makes fun of your hair, right? And then you cut her off for disrespecting you.
No, but if she's constantly making fun of my hair, why would I want to be in that relationship? Would you?
Which do you
Why would you
value
take the
more, your
relationship?
hair or your
Why would you ever take
relationship?
that disrespect?
Well, I think I will say, to kind of steelman that position a little bit, if you will, to use a debate bro.
And I
term.
see you, Fairy Queen. We'll give it to you after, but go ahead.
I think if you are in a relationship where you are being constantly belittled, it's not a healthy relationship, and it is one that you should get
obviously.
out of. But
So why would you make fun of me for that? That's so fucked up.
I mean, the way you were describing it earlier was like you're going to cut off your family for
No.
making.
Yeah.
Snide condiments constantly, not just one.
Okay, so I'll defend it. So one of the reasons like why I think like some like Ghosty and I are having this reaction, okay, is that I think like from your parents specifically, at least with my parents, okay, like I know my parents love me, my parents have cared for me, but when I do something, when I wear something stupid or when I had a bad haircut, they just told me, okay, and I knew that they loved
didn't
me.
make fun
It
of
wasn't
you.
to be mean. They did.
Yeah,
Yes, they did.
exactly.
They did make fun of me.
No,
Yes, they did.
but when
Yeah,
they
but they
make
did
fun
make fun of
you,
me. But
it
they
was
did.
not
Yeah,
venomous.
but the point is, right? Like, okay,
That was the point.
but no.
Go ahead, Fairy
point
Queen.
is,
Finish up. Yeah.
okay, it's kind of immature, right, to have like that thin of a skin, right? Part of like what it is to have good relationships with other people is that you're able to take a little ribbing from like your parents, from your spouse, from your siblings, from et cetera, et cetera. You're able to have arguments just for the sake of the conversation, right, without getting angry. You're able to do these things, right, with it while behaving well, right? And part of like what it is to be in a good relationship with other people, frankly,
I completely agree. It's just it feels like we're disconnecting from the venomous comments and non-venomous comments. Like we're like disconnecting somehow. I don't know
well,
why.
I don't think anybody here is advising for like emotional abuse of like you listening, somebody telling you that you suck and you're ugly and you're hideous. And by the way, you look like you have an
But you're
octopus.
saying that they should
Nobody's
stand it from the
saying that,
parents.
right?
You're saying they should stand it from the parents.
I'm
saying
saying
you
that
should
like
take
your
it.
parents
Just take it.
sometimes belittle you for the way that you dress and that's okay and that you're going to be
If it's not
fine.
venomous.
Okay,
If it's not
okay.
venomous. Yes, I agree. If it's not venomous.
It's okay for your parents to belittle you every now and again, okay? The point is, right, as long as your parents aren't being abusive, as long as they're not abusing you, as long as like they have fulfilled their obligation to you in being a good parent as best they can, then it's okay, and I do
Would
think that you
you
should get
agree
over
that
it.
verbal abuse is like constant venomous comments? Yes or no?
Potentially, it depends on like what the comments are. Like, let's say for instance, like every
Please
evening,
don't do
okay?
this. Please don't do this. No. We're just generically venomous comments. We all know what that means. It's like a hurt. It's like it's meant to hurt the person.
No, we're not doing this. And I'm going to tell you why, okay? Suppose you get mad at your spouse for not doing the dishes every single night. And every single night you get into an argument with your spouse because they fail to do the dishes again, okay? Look, John, you didn't do the dishes. Sally, why the heck haven't you done this yet? Okay. Is that a venomous comment? It's an argument. It's heated. It happens.
Yes,
in the
they're
kitchen
being
every
petty.
evening.
They're being petty to start an argument
Yeah, see,
instead of
that is
actually
not
having the
emotional abuse.
confrontation.
That's an argument. That's a disagreement.
No, I know.
Okay?
But after years, like Wick, you promoted to do this. So how long of these comments should we like take?
How many
Like, what's
times should
too
you
long?
forgive those who trespass against you? 7 times? No, 7 to 7th power or whatever the fuck he said, right? Like, yes, there is a point where, again, we're not talking like if they hate you, then that's a different problem, right? But if they like, look, if Asmongold had a girlfriend who constantly said, "Hey man, you should brush your teeth. Your teeth are pretty fucking nasty. You need to brush your teeth. Your teeth are pretty fucking gross." That's not abusive.
Yeah, that's just it.
It is abusive.
It's abusive.
It's abusive for him to not brush his teeth. Honestly.
Okay, is it if your child isn't brushing their teeth and they're rotting out of their fucking skull? You need to tell your child in no uncertain terms that their teeth are gross and they need to brush them.
No, child protection services need to intervene because you are a bad parent. That's
You should
happening.
tell them that's gross. You should be like, that's gross.
If
to
your
not
child's
brush your
20,
teeth.
No,
if your
no,
child's
no.
20,
You should
no
show
longer
them
living
how
in
to
your
do it,
house, and
and they will never be
they're
able to
rotting out
have
of their
any like
skull,
choice.
you need to
Yeah,
tell them, brush your
if that's
fucking
already
teeth,
happening,
son.
if it's happening you're far too late. If that's happening, you're far too late. You're already a bad parent. Child Protective Services is on its way. Don't worry. Don't worry.
Pick up your 12-year-old with the rotting
We're talking
teeth.
about
Like,
adults. Yeah.
yeah.
I want to say, I think one of the big things that I'm noticing that comes up a lot, or that is kind of a common vector that we're reaching here, that I want to just see if we sort of agree on. I think we all, and I could be wrong here, I think we all agree that having a disagreement in itself, by itself, is not necessarily a good reason to get a divorce or to end a friendship or anything like that. However, I think if that disagreement, or whatever disagreement it is, branches out to a point where there is such a huge breakdown in communication that you cannot get along with this person, regardless of what it stemmed from, be it, Sam voted for Trump and Sally doesn't like that, or Sam doesn't do the dishes ever and Sally doesn't like that. Either one of those two things, if it stems out or branches out to the point where there is constant fighting, constant communication breakdowns, this is not a healthy relationship. And this is one that these people are not compatible and they need to get out
But
of.
here's
Do
the
we agree with that?
difference. Here's the difference is that you guys are
agree.
saying that divorce is the option. I'm saying that there are other ways to fix that. If
There
both
are.
if both
No one has
players,
disagreed. Wait. Ask the question. Who disagrees with?
you both are saying that it's acceptable, right?
Yeah,
Or
I'm saying it's
someone
on the table.
After
I'm not
communication.
saying
I just like gave it to you that I'm trying in this relationship. I've tried to communicate with this person. They are not listening. Communication is not going through. I've tried for like a year straight. Is divorce an option?
Okay.
To get them to agree with you, or just to
No.
what?
To agree that, like, let's say like Democrats aren't Satanists. How about that? or like that weather
If I
cannot
was
be
in a if I had
What
a
about-
can't be controlled by a weather machine.
Yes,
What
I
about
think at a
just
certain
Trump is
point,
a
even if
better-
you can't convince them, hold on, let me answer this question. If I had a wife who thought that the Democrats had a weather machine that they would summon hurricanes, right? And we had fights about this, we had arguments about this, and I came to the realization that nothing I said, no matter how I communicated, was ever going to change her mind. Divorce is not the answer there. The answer is to stop fucking talking about it.
No, it is
Yes.
not to.
Yes,
not to
to
put away
not
the shadow.
bring
No,
up the subject.
No, you do not. No, Wick, we talk about this all the time with Nazis. You do not just hide away bad
Nazis?
information. Yes, this goes directly hand in hand. You do not just tuck them away in a cupboard and hope they go away. These ideas permeate throughout every aspect of their life. Yes.
What behavior is my hypothetical wife engaging in that would be different if she didn't have this belief?
If they believe a weather machine is possible, and all the prerequisites of that is possible, and a weather machine can create a hurricane, and it's for the purposes.
Okay, what
to help
behavior
Democrats,
is changing because of
all
that?
those things are possible for them. That's not just going to be a sole idea that is just only for that one topic. That is not just like you're trying to like hold like a demon within like a urn, and it's just like it's always going to be coming out slowly and slowly dripping onto your kids. I don't want that around my kids.
What about like flat Earth or
That's
like a moon
insane.
landing conspiracy?
No, hold on. That's insane. You understand that take you just made is literal insane, and I think you're a danger to children.
No way that you need to confront Nazis instead of hiding them away.
We're not talking about Nazis. We're talking about someone who has a crazy crazy belief. One crazy belief.
No, it's not just going to be. This is insane. Who
It
just
can
believes
just be
one
one.
crazy belief?
It can.
Who
Wait,
just
what
believes
if you believe in like the Illuminati or something?
You can. I guarantee you, if you talk with your friends, each of them's gonna have a belief that you think is crazy and nuts.
No, I don't.
Some conspiracy theory.
No,
your friends are just afraid to share them with you because they know if they do that you'll stop being friends with them. So they shut up about it.
This is not an argument. It's not an argument that I just like. You can't see it because it's like I don't like what is this argument here?
I will say, if I can kind of try to center what he's saying, I think I understand, is that in this specific example here of the Democrats have a weather machine that controls the weather and that is causing hurricanes in Republican areas to hurt Republicans from winning. If you have that belief, I think it is safe to assume that that is not a belief in a vacuum, that belief is indicative of other beliefs that you will have, other political beliefs, other moral or other metaphysical beliefs almost at a certain point.
This
That
is a
is not.
fallacy, though.
Well,
You're
no, my point is
demonstrating the
that is not
fallacy.
in a
They have
No,
this
no, no,
belief,
no.
so now I can
You have
assume all these other constellation of beliefs that go along with it. Oh, you're Republican, you must believe X, Y, Z, A, B, C. It has to be the case.
You have to explain to me how can they believe Democrats are controlling weather right now? Please explain that. How can they believe that without it
They read an article on cloud seeding. They're like, oh
Yes.
my God, they're making the clouds go
Yes.
bigger, and
So now
obviously this can change hurricanes.
So now they have conspiracies about weather. So now all of weather it can be contributed to the Democrats. This is not just about this now hurricane. Now all future weather events can now be contributed to Democrats if it hurts Republicans, correct?
Sure.
And you just call them
Okay,
stupid,
so
roll
it's not
your
just
eyes,
one
and
thing.
move on. Like, I
No,
don't know.
that doesn't work. That does
Okay,
not
so
work.
if you don't think that they're fit to be around, what should we do with these people?
We should divorce them and
then
make
what?
them into.
Do they disappear?
And then they can marry each other, and then they'll slowly die out because like they will not like that's how intelligent civilizations work. We pair off with the more intelligent people that are more aligned with our beliefs in reality, and we discard those people that are completely disillusioned. Like where is the non-disillusioned Trumple that's voting and
what's
going
to happen in practice with that is that you are going to self-select yourself out of the gene pool.
No.
Yes,
that's
exactly what's going to happen.
That's going to happen
because it's not just weather machines. You're going to decide that anyone who has different ideas, anyone who has different ideas about tax returns, right? And whether a candidate should show their tax returns. You're going to decide at one point that anyone who disagrees with you is a literal crazy person, and they have to be cut off from civilization. This is going to continue because it's not the opinion, it's the way of thinking. It's the way and the reasoning that you use to arrive at that opinion that is causing
does not make with another primate
ways
who thinks
of
I want to ask, so Wick, you said something that I want to kind of elaborate on, or I want to expand on a little bit. So you said someone with Sizzling's beliefs here would be, or someone who held by these beliefs and these stances
is a crazy person,
would be self-selecting themselves out of the gene pool. Is that a bad thing that somebody has? If somebody has these, if somebody has this level of principled beliefs that they will not. They are not willing to disagree with somebody, or they are not willing to see someone who they disagree with as persona non grata. No, that's fine. I don't want to argue whether or not
so crazy.
Well, hang on. I don't want to argue the morality of this person.
He's calling me crazy and lonely. I feel like I need to respond.
You can't after
why do we care about how that person lives their life? Who else are they affecting if they are pushing people away and they are isolating themselves from everyone else? Who are they hurting other than themselves?
True.
I still care when people hurt themselves, to be clear.
If enough people do it too, it's a problem. If enough people start doing this,
if enough people self-select away from the crazy people, then there'll be more people away from the crazy people.
Do you care about when someone is anorexic?
Yes, of course.
Okay, but they're just hurting themselves. Who cares what they eat in their eating habits? They're only hurting themselves.
I would not.
I care about it. I don't know. I'm not with his.
Well, I'm talking to often here, right?
Yeah, go.
So
yeah,
often.
I care. I don't want people hurting themselves.
Sure.
But I also but I also would not make a moral judgment on them based on.
Well, anorexic is a medical condition, so it's a little different, right? It's not really a choice. But when we're talking about things that are controllable by people, such as who they interact and what they consider to be how they respond to annoyances, that is absolutely within their control, and it is absolutely something I can make judgments about.
I would disagree.
Yes, exactly. So why can't you divorce over those behaviors?
I'm not saying it should be illegal for you to do so. I'm saying that if you do, I'm going to call you a bad person.
Well, why? I would say that the way that somebody responds to external stimuli of other people that becomes kind of a nature versus nurture question of how do we get to these points where we are feeling these ways, or where we do not have the ability to disagree with somebody or to have an amicable relationship with someone because we disagree with them. What kind of things brought someone to that position? Do we believe that someone is born that way, or do we believe that it is their environment that they came up in, or the environment that they surround
Here's
themselves
the
in that
thing
are making
about the
them
environment arguments, right? Because I've heard this in other situations too. People can be in the same exact environment, come from the same exact background, but they behave in radically different ways, right? We don't want to remove agency from people by saying those people who are born in this environment with this background or have a tendency for X, Y, and Z, maybe, but that does not excuse it, nor does it be something that we can't condemn or morally judge them for. We can say, hey, sure, like a lot of people were born in oppressive circumstances, but not all of them killed and raped people, right? Like,
Mhm.
okay, like, look.
My point is just
Hmm.
that if somebody is socially harming themselves, putting themselves in a position where other people don't want to be around them, where other people don't want to hang out with them, I would say that is between just them and themselves. That is their business, and
If you
that's
tweet
not my
about it,
problem.
if you tweet about it in public, I'm going to make a public comment. That's all I'm
Like,
saying.
yeah, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is,
Sure.
like, if it's like I can't be friends with, if I say I can't be friends with a Trump supporter, I can't be in a relationship with a Trump supporter, I can't even have a friendly
Yeah,
conversation with a Trump
it
supporter. My point
makes
is,
that's a
I
you
would say to
problem.
that person, I'd be like, yeah, that's a you problem. That's not a me problem,
But
and
it's
I
a
don't
growing
care.
problem in society, and more people are being
I don't
divided
I
and
don't
like
think it
not
is.
willing. It is. We're like the
I
most
I think it's a
like
good
the
thing.
most polarity.
I think
I
it's a
think that
good
we
thing
live
to shed off a population that is delusional a little bit.
Just
I think
cut
we
I
live
off
think
in
an entire half of the country and not
no,
associate
well,
with them or deal with
that's
them.
technically what we do every
When
4
we
years.
work with them, we
Essentially,
live around them. Like we
we,
have
well,
to learn how to be a community
no, yes, we can be a
within
community.
different
We can be a
beliefs.
community. We can be a community. I just won't be in a relationship one on one with you. That's fine. Why am
so
I a
I
loser? Why am I going to be cut off from the pool if I get enough people to act in a similar
So
way, Wick?
I think this is a very different. There's a very big difference between someone. If I meet you for the first time and we've had no interactions, and you start saying crazy shit, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to talk to you anymore. There's a
That's what I'm saying.
difference between that and me being in a relationship with someone where I'm married to them for 20 years, and then having that stuff. The obligation levels that I
Don't
have are
don't change.
different.
No,
well,
no,
when we
no.
talk
You're
about the
crapping
20-year
yourself.
marriage,
This is sunken cost fallacy thing. This has nothing to do with like actual like any kind of logic behind it. You just feel that you have a need because you've sunk in so much time in this person. That's all it is. Is like if someone comes up, like Trump comes up, he's a catalyst. We all agree these problems would never have come if Trump didn't happen. He's a catalyst, but he is here now. These issues are now prevalent. Are you allowed to divorce them a year after you try to communicate with them, Wig?
You're putting
okay,
Trump before your relationship.
No,
Yeah.
yeah,
you're
That's what
putting
you're doing when you
no,
do
no,
that.
no.
yeah,
You're putting
you are.
communication above your relationship.
No,
Trump
you're
is in the
not.
way of good communication
Okay,
because
so a
you are the
couple of
topics
things.
that you have no longer are able to talk about.
Go ahead, Fairy
Okay,
Queen.
okay, so just a couple of things. So first of all, you are putting Trump before your relationship if you're doing that. You are saying that. And as to the idea of the sunk cost fallacy, no, it's not, okay? You don't just make the obligation with the person like right after you marry them. After 20 years of marriage, you might have co-signed on a mortgage together. You might have had multiple children together with that person. You might have built a career with that person. By the time 20 years has passed, like with you being in a sincere marriage with them for 20 years, you now have co-signed on a ton of increasing levels of obligations and duties together as time has gone on. So yes, you do have more obligations to that person because as you get older and as you achieve and as you
Gain
do more
And I'm
things,
and
not just
lose
you
talking about
you
legal
gain
gain more
ones
and
either.
lose
duties. Yes.
obligations at an equal rate. You gain and lose obligations at equal rate. You gain obligations when you have kids, but you lose obligations when they leave the nest. This is just how relationships are. Sometimes after all your obligations are done, you don't. And like a mortgage is just legal shit. I don't cares, but that has nothing to do with morality. Like if this person is causing you enough trouble, just get rid of them, and like it's not a big deal. Who cares? You can have another relationship.
Your kids care. That's who cares. Your kids, your child is going
They
to
are
care.
gone.
When
They're out
mom
of the
has been
race.
fired.
They're out of the situation.
They are right. And you want to know
college.
what, statistically speaking, like what Wick said earlier at the very beginning of this stream was true, like about divorce, which is that kids, it is a type of trauma that kids experience, okay? And there are negative after effects that happen from it. Now, it is
Who
perfectly
cares?
true, and who cares? Those kids care.
No,
the well-being of those kids, their
I
future
come
cares.
from divorce.
If you're their
I'm
parent,
a kid
you
from
damn well
divorce.
better
We can
care.
tell,
What do you
but
mean?
first of all,
Okay?
your parents should be the ones that care.
Get
Your
traumatized
mom or
by
your
the
dad should
situation.
care more about
Not-
you than their politics. Yes, 100%
Yes,
every
so they
time.
should not-
Holy
they should
shit!
not-
I don't know why this
Absolutely.
is
No, they
crazy.
should not subject you to horrible ideas. And like that's why you should always care about your kids before your partner, or like some weird obligation you have to that. You should always care about your kids before anything else.
Exactly,
If
which
your
is
kids
why
are
just
getting
because your
harmed by these
partner believes
ideas,
something crazy
they're now like
doesn't mean you
asking you
immediately write
questions
them
about
off.
like, oh, how much do the Democrats control? Oh, oh, really? George Soros? Who's that, Dad? And then like you don't like all of these ideas are going to be destructive. They're going to harm their kid.
The question will be, and I think we can answer this question. I think we can substantively answer this question, is does someone who votes for Trump, right, and having those beliefs, right, and those behaviors, do they hurt a child that they're raising more or less than a divorce? And I think that the divorce, in 9 times out of 10, again, is going to is absolutely going to be worse. And $5 from Soyato, which I can measure $5. I went to school and learned too much. Now I'm forever alone. Everyone else is crazy. Thank you for the $5.
So I would say in with the question that you're posing here, I want to bring it back to the initial tweet again, and I want to point out from what I can gather from this tweet and just what I hear from this. Okay, is
and she made other tweets, by the way. You guys can look, right? And
she said 8 years of fighting, right? Am I correct in that?
Yeah. Hold on. Let me read the tweet again for those of you who are just here. Donald Trump broke my marriage as of today after 8 fucking years of fighting, not fighting, ignoring, pretending. We decided to divorce. Donald Trump broke my marriage, and I know I am I know I am not alone. So
it sounds like
Gracie, or not Gracie, Ghosty was correct when they went through periods where they said we're just not going to fight about it. Apparently, it just didn't work in this case.
Yeah. So what do you do here? What I want to say is, we're talking about almost half of the marriage was spent with whatever it is, be it politics, be it religion, be it whatever. We're talking about half the marriage where these two people have such a fundamental disagreement that they are constantly on and off fighting about this one thing for half of their marriage. That sounds to me like that is not a healthy marriage. Whether or not you agree, or whether or not you would divorce somebody because of this, or whether or not you could get along with somebody who agrees with you or disagrees with you on this particular topic. In this case, we're talking about politics, could be religion, could be anything. If half of your marriage has been spent in this point where you are constantly not getting along and constantly fighting, that is a toxic situation. That is a terrible, awful environment to be in. That is not a safe place
but
for
that's
anybody
because that at least one of those people were toxic people. At least. Probably both.
Can you leave that toxic person?
Yes.
Well, these people can bring it upon themselves, though.
But that's not because that would have happened regardless of Trump.
You're assuming she's not trying. You're assuming she's not trying. So crazy.
No, I'm not assuming she's not trying. I'm saying that some people could be making this such a big issue when it probably doesn't have to be as big of an issue. And they're the ones actually like facilitating these fights to the point where it's a divorce. Again, putting Trump and politics before the people you love and your spouse. If you're willing to end a relationship because of a presidential candidate, you are putting that candidate before your husband or wife. That's what's happening.
No, you're putting your kids before your husband or your wife. Why would you do that? Like,
well,
no, you should
you don't know that, and also that's not necessarily true.
You're literally just holding onto this person, this toxic person you've tried to communicate with. You're trying your hardest.
You don't know if they're toxic. You don't know if they're toxic. No, you don't.
If you're constant fighting, they're toxic.
If it's such.
Yes or no?
It
Why
doesn't
would
mean
you
that
not
that
be fighting
person
on
is
behalf
toxic. It
of the
could be
world?
you. You could be you. It
No.
could be.
Yes,
I can't get over that I can't get over that my husband's going to vote for Trump. I can't get over it. So I'm going to ruin my relationship.
You're assuming she's not trying. That's why you keep saying that, oh, it could be you. You're assuming she's not trying.
I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm
You can go
saying that some people can do this. I'm not even saying like her necessarily, but she's specifically saying Trump
about her.
ruined her marriage.
Yes.
Well, and again, I don't know the details, but what I'm saying is there are people, and I've seen people not associate with people who associate with people who vote for Trump. Who are like, oh, you're friends with Trump voters? I'm not going to be friends with. I've seen that.
How many different tactics did she try? Fighting. What was the other ones? Not fighting. Ignoring. What was the other? There was maybe two more, one more. She tried all the things that everyone in this call talked about. Wick.
Or she could have brought it.
She tried.
Like,
She's trying so hard.
Or
the conversations keep coming up because it's part of the common. Like, it's just the topic right now. You can't.
Or she couldn't let it go. There's a world where she couldn't let it go. That her husband was voting for Trump.
Oh, you're watching Fox News again? You must love MAGA, you magtard, right? Why don't you love the Constitution more than you love politics? This dude's just watching TV. Okay, we can all imagine scenarios where that's the case, right?
I think that dude should leave her. Then she sounds like a terrible person, and he should leave her.
Yes, exactly. Either one. The divorce was a good idea. How often is divorce a bad idea?
Almost all. Okay, I won't say that because that's probably not true. But there are more divorces than there needs to be.
No, how often is a divorce? How often is a person's happiness increased by divorce, Wick?
I don't know.
It's close to like 60-70%.
You're missing the point.
What
people are allowing politics?
Which is more important, right? Which is more important, like your happiness or your children?
Your happiness leads to your children's happiness. If you're miserable every day, your kids will become miserable.
If you're letting your mood determine how you treat your kid, you're a bad person and a bad parent.
You are not a rock. You are a human being. You're a man.
Do you say you can't control your emotions?
You can control your emotions, but your emotions are not invisible to your children. They pick it up all the time. You know this as a parent. You can try to hide as much as you want, but they know you've just cried. They know you just went through a huge argument with your boss. They know. They don't, like, they're not stupid.
Kids are, first of all, yes, kids are stupid.
No, kids are emotionally very, very
So second of all, right? Kids are stupid. I think we can all agree, right? I think Kamala said it best when she said kids are stupid, and that's a quote. I'm quoting. Second of all, right? Part of your responsibility as a parent and as a spouse even is to not let your mood dictate how you treat your significant other and your children.
No, we're not leaving this. Wick, have you ever noticed that your mom was crying when she didn't tell you? I have. I can.
Yes, there have been times, but I am sure there have been times as well where my mom has been sad and I did not know.
This is true, but that doesn't matter. If it has not worked 100% of the time, then this is not a solution. Correct?
Man, we can't stop murders 100% of the time. Might as well have no laws against murders, gang. What the fuck?
We should not do the solution that has a chance to impact your child negatively. We should do the solution that has a chance to always impact your child positively, correct?
Oh my gosh. This divorce is not the example for this. I'm sorry.
What? You're arguing against your position here.
I will say, I want to just
How so?
Here, hang on.
How so?
Because the divorce is almost always going to hurt your child.
No, because we know
more than staying together. We know that.
No, we know that if you are happy, your children will feel that happiness. We know this.
If I can be a little anecdotal here, if I can.
Go ahead. Why not?
As somebody who is both a child of, I wouldn't even say, can't technically call it a divorce because my parents were never married. But as somebody who came from a broken home, as it were, and as somebody who has produced a broken home in that I had a child with my wife and then proceeded to get a divorce later, I will say that the environment that my child is growing up in is one that is much healthier than the environment that she was in prior to our divorce. Neither of us got along. We tried counseling, we tried talking, we tried working through these things, and these things didn't work. We grew apart. We grew as people into people that we just did not vibe with each other anymore, and it didn't work out. We were both unhappy all the time. We were arguing a lot, and we didn't do this in front of my daughter. We never did. Never argued in front of her. But I know that the environment that we were in was one where neither of us was happy most of the time. There is an air above the house that nobody is happy. Now, both of
Everyone
us
knows
being
this.
wait,
Everyone
let me
knows
finish
this.
talking.
Hold on.
Hang
Are
Sorry.
you happier or is your kid happier? Like, you're bringing up an anecdote.
Yeah, no.
Right?
That's what
He's
I'm
talking
getting
about
at.
his
That's what
kid.
I'm getting
He's
at.
talking
Hang
about
on.
his kid.
Hey, no, let me talk. I got it. What I say is, in this situation, in my anecdote here, her mother and I get along wonderfully now. We co-parent. She is friends with my current wife. They hang out. And because of that, we are all able to have a lot happier situation. We are a happy family now. We are a mixed family. She has two houses that she is happy to be at. That's not always the case. I know that. And I know that that doesn't always work that way. In my scenario, though, what I'm saying, can you mute? You have an echo.
Yeah, you're.
Really awesome.
I don't know if you're driving or what, buddy.
Okay.
But
But we have a much happier situation now. We're happier. We get along. We have a very amicable relationship. And because of that, my daughter is not growing up in an environment where people are unhappy. Everywhere that she goes, both houses, she is happy.
do you think that you're? Okay, I want to be
You're fine.
respectful about
You're not
this,
going to
right?
offend me.
Because
I
you did bring it
promise.
out.
I
But I
promise you're
don't
not
know
going
if
to offend me.
your child would feel comfortable telling you otherwise. And I don't know
She
your
has.
situation, right?
So
but,
yeah, I'll say
here's
this.
here's if I may finish just real quick.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that you can say that your child would not have been happier had you and her biological mom stayed together. I don't know the specifics of your situation. And obviously, if there was abuse involved or something, whatever, right? That's a different
which was not the
conversation.
Case.
But again, while you might be happier, kudos. I don't know if she is.
Well, this is what I'll say about that, because again, this goes to kind of what we were talking about earlier with parents treating their kids with respect. We have an environment that is very open. Dialogue is very open. If our kids are upset about something, or they are mad about something, or they are hurt by something, they can come to us. We have made that abundantly clear from the beginning. Hey, if I do something that you don't like, tell me. Don't be disrespectful, but tell me, and we can talk about it. And this has come up where she has said, "Hey, I am sad
You're
because
still
you and
hold on, you're still echoing, buddy. You gotta mute for now.
Oh shit! I didn't know I
Yeah.
can be muted. My bad.
Okay, go
but
ahead.
she has told me, she has said, "Hey, I'm not happy about this." When we first got a divorce, she wasn't happy. She was very upset. I think part of that you can attribute to being a child and not really understanding the complexities of human relationships, as it were. And part of it you can attribute to just a child obviously wants their parents to be together. That's obvious. Everybody knows that. That being said, we have had conversations with her. We treat her like an adult to the appropriate extent that it is, where I tell her, hey, listen, your mom and I were not happy. We were not getting along. Now that we are apart, we are much happier. We are both able to parent you better. We are able to be more attentive to your needs. We are able to realize what is going on with you more, because we are not concerned with what is going on with us and what is going on with our relationship and whether or not we are happy. And it works. And she is now come to understand that. She no longer, talks about, oh, I'm unhappy here, or I don't like that. Sometimes it still comes up. I wish that you and mom were still together. I say, I understand. I get that. But on the other side of that, as somebody who has also grown up in a household where parents were fighting all the time, and I said, hey, I wish that you and your husband, talking to my mom, would get a fucking divorce because this guy sucks. There was no abuse in that situation either. They just didn't like each other. So
I
kids
agree
are
that
perceptive to
sometimes
these things.
I agree that sometimes relationships are better off even divorcing if they're that unhealthy and that toxic. I agree that some kids can be better off with those parents, divorce and co-parenting, whatever. But that's not really what this conversation is about. This is about people ending relationships because of their different political views.
Yeah, we're gonna give it to we're gonna give it to Fairy Queen real quick. She's been trying to get in here, and then time's coming up. So go ahead.
So So this is just like just a study, which I will post like in the group chat that we're all in. And what this study is that it looks specifically at levels of happiness both before and after divorce. And you can look it up yourself. I literally just put up like divorce happiness statistics. So here is what it shows. In general, the data show that the happiness of children decreases after the parents divorce. For the part of children who always feel happy, quote, it turns out that their number has decreased after their parents' marriage dissolution. Also, the data show that there is a relatively high percentage of children who have never felt happy, even when they live with both parents and after their divorce too. This percentage turns out to have increased this high level, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. And we do see, like consistently here, that 88% of the children, like said, that they answered that they wish their parents were not divorced. 19.14% said that they agreed with their parents divorced. Most children say that they would always like to live with both of their parents. And the number one reason that's given for why they want to live with their parents, both parents again, is because they say at a rate of 37%, I would feel more calm spiritually is one of is the number one reason that's given. And
$2.
the number two reason is my life would be better.
Sure. $2 from Letta Viant. Is voting for political beliefs action or belief? Thank you for the $2.
Well,
but address what
and all
Fairy
this
Queen said,
and all of this to say, right? And I think it's important to say that, right? Because and please, Topical, I hope that we aren't offending you. You know, I'm sure that like you made the best decision for yourself,
None whatsoever.
For your family.
You're not going to offend me, I promise. Don't worry.
Yeah. And this is not also to say that there aren't people out there who are divorced for whom that wasn't the right decision for their families and for themselves. You know, that's not what we're saying. But what it just seems to me to be the case that it is the case that like happiness does decrease on average, like for kids as a consequence of divorce, especially like if those marriages were otherwise pretty well and were doing like they were otherwise like this, and otherwise there were no other conflicts, right? So for the relationship to end, right, for you to divorce your husband or to divorce your wife because you have a singular one or two disagreements, that seems to have a huge impact on the happiness of that child. So I think that just to what Sizzling was saying earlier, it seems like directly not true, and the data doesn't show that.
Okay, just real quick, Fairy Queen, check DMs, and the rest of you, gang. This has been it's past 8, gang. We've had a robust, resounding discussion about this. We've obviously have very different opinions, but it is time to get to the closing statements and get things done. And I appreciate you all for coming. If you've enjoyed this content, if you've liked this discussion, hit that like button. Hit that subscribe. Give some gift subs. Throw some super chats my way. All appreciated. I love it all. Next week, we got some great shows coming up. We're going to talk to a guy called The Mind. Okay? That'll be fun. We're also going to have discussions about gender issues in science. So recently, Nature put out an article, Nature magazine, right? Put out an article that women are just better at interviews for professor positions and scientific assistant positions.
I do want to make a quick statement on that meta-analysis. The meta-analysis was a part of if fathers were outside of the picture. Okay. So if they divorced and the fathers were not present, yes, of course, the child will have a worse outcome.
And then the second thing that Nature did was they put out an article saying that the Nobel Prizes aren't being diverse enough because almost all Nobel Prizes are run by men. And so the way that they deal with these issues and the way that they look at men's issues versus women's issues and when there are disparities is very different. We're going to talk to some scientists about that. Corey Campbell, it'll be fun. So tune in next week. We're going to go to closing statements. Gang, all these people have put in their time to come on my show, to speak their piece. So if you can follow each of them when they give you their socials and where you can follow them, subscribe to them, please click their links. Please give them subs. Please give them your attention and time. I really appreciate you. And $5, finally, from Dark Ruffalo. I think that this divorce is encouraging for Melania. She probably wants to divorce her husband because of Trump. Hope their kids would take it well. Thank you for the $5. Okay, Ghosty, take us away.
Okay. So yeah, I just really think that I I just wish people would be more accepting of people with different political views and just different views in general. And I think it has been a major problem that we've been seeing recently. So yeah, just be open-minded and considerate. I just think it would be a good thing for us in general. But thanks for having me on, Wick. My name's Ghosty. I'm on YouTube, and it's spelled 6HOSTII. So yeah.
Check her out. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate your contributions. Fairy Queen, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. My name's Fairy Queen. You can find me at @itmefairyqueen on Twitter and at @itsmefairyqueen on Twitch and YouTube. So thank you so much for having me. I didn't get to say this while I was, because we were having a really good discussion back and forth, but I wanted to end with a take of mine about why I think this issue, like why people I think need to get over their political differences to a degree. And that goes back to the fact that for most people, because like most men, like approximately like roughly 30% are conservative, and because approximately 40% of women are liberal, that means there necessarily will be some crossover, which means that if you're not good at getting along with people that have different political beliefs with you, it's going to be extremely difficult for you to get along with a member of the opposite sex. And right now we've been discussing this from the perspective of you're already in a relationship and then leaving it. But I think it's important to remember that there are lots of people who won't even decide to be friends or won't even decide to date someone just because they happen to date, to vote or to view politics differently than they do. And so I would really encourage you that if you are in that boat, that you open and expand your horizons in order to try to find the best outcome for you.
Gang, Fairy Queen, always a pleasure. Thank you for being here. Give her a follow, a like, all that. Really thank you and appreciate you. Often Topical, go ahead.
Sure. So yeah, Often Topical. You can find me on Twitter at Often Topical. I sometimes post dumb shit and memes, and I have fun over there. Give me a follow. I guess what I would say at the end of this is I stand by that. I don't think that these divorces over political reason or over political disagreements in itself as the sole reason. I just don't think that this is happening. I think that at the end of the day, this is kind of a non-issue that we're talking about. And that's pretty much kind of the position that I've come to as we've continued to discuss this. Is I don't think that this is happening, or at least if this is happening, I don't think that it's happening at a significant rate where it's like an epidemic or a problem that we really need to address. And that's pretty much what I have for this.
Gang, give him a follow, give him a like, help him out. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate your contributions.
Thanks for having me.
Sizzling, go ahead.
Hello. Twitter, my name. I'm just a reply guy. I like to argue. That's all I do. And just basically, you can end a relationship for however reason you want. Really, who cares? It's your life to live. If you have someone that you see as toxic and irreworkable, get them out of your life. There's obviously if you divorce and either parent is not co-parenting correctly, divorce would probably be better, not happening. But if two parents can divorce and co-parent really effectively, why would I want a child to be in a household that has any kind of fights? Really, as long as the child feels safe, that's all that matters.
Oh, he didn't have to go. I didn't take him away.
Okay.
Well, thanks for being here, gang. So my last thoughts, because I did contribute here, are pretty simple. I want to live in a world where people realize that they are not the center of the universe, that their wants, needs, and desires aren't always something that should be catered to, but rather we have commitments to the people around us, ethical commitments, moral commitments, regardless of whether we consent to it or not. I think that you should care more about your family and your children and your spouse than you do about your political candidates. And I wish we would live in that world. Gang, remember, we do these shows all the time. Have a good weekend, and I will see you guys next week. Who's still streaming out of all of you?
Peace.
Any of you? None
Not
of
me.
you?
Sorry.
Okay.
Blacktoid is streaming.
Blactoid
He's
is
on
streaming?
vacation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.
Blactoid. Wave bye, everyone. Wave bye, and I'll see
everyone.
you guys next week.
Okay,
Peace out, Girl
bye.
Scouts. Bye.
Bye.